Chapter 877. The ground split open and the 1,000-demon tomb appeared. Apart from endless corpses, there were many treasures within. Many fiend demons were envious. Nobody knew who was the first to lose their patience and rush forward. Thereafter, the demons swarmed forward and charged towards the 1,000-demon tomb. Demonic chi rumbled. Many demonic arts and weapons collided in midair in a chaotic manner. In midair, the 6 overlords frowned. They felt a vague sense of uneasiness, but they could not explain why. Something's wrong, the Haka-Dojin's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. The killing intent of the 1,000-demon tomb is way too strong. I wonder how many fiend demons will die if they charge in. Su Zimo's gaze was electrifying as he surveyed his surroundings with a nervous expression, as though he was searching for something. A moment later, Su Zimo's eyes lit up and he vanished from the spot in a flash. Within the demon horde, Monkey, Linghu, Ching Ching, Little Fox, and Solitary Cloud formed a formation and charged towards the 1,000-demon tomb with the demons. The Rat King followed behind happily. Linghu asked softly as he sprinted, "Brother Monkey, could that old ape have used your rod and not returned it?" "No," Monkey shook his head. "Given his strength, he would have killed us a long time ago if he wanted to snatch it. Why would he wait until now?" "Don't worry about it for nothing," Ching Ching pouted her lips. "Even the Overlord wants second brother to get close to his granddaughter." "Why would he harm second brother?" "That's true," Linghu nodded. Little Fox was worried and whispered, "What should we do about the young master? It's been so long and there's still no news." "At the very least, it's good news," Solitary Cloud said darkly. "At the very least, it proves that the Overlord of Levitating Goat Peak hasn't succeeded yet." In that short period of time, Monkey and the others had already arrived at the edge of the 1,000-demon tomb. Just as they were about to charge in, a figure flashed before them. "Who's there?" Monkey and the others were alarmed and attacked without hesitation. Monkey swung his arm and clenched it into a fist. His flesh expanded and a gigantic, blood-red seal was formed as it descended. Linghu extended a pair of tiger claws. Clang clang clang. On top of the tiger claws, 4 sharp white claws popped out. They flickered with a cold light and pierced towards the figure in front. Ching Ching flicked the green feather fan in her hand, fanning out a ball of green flame. Solitary Cloud's cultivation realm was higher than Monkey and the other 2. His eyes lit up as he recognized the newcomer. The little fox didn't see the person clearly, but she wrinkled her nose and sniffed. She smelled a familiar scent, but didn't attack. In the blink of an eye, Monkey, Linghu, and Ching Ching's attacks descended. The newcomer threw a backhand punch, colliding with the monkey's great seal. His other hand flicked out fingernails that were as sharp as knives. They clashed head-on with the tiger claws, creating a series of sparks. Monkey and Linghu shuddered and retreated half a step. In mid-air, a ball of jade-green flames had already come close. The person opened his mouth wide and blew a breath forward, directly extinguishing the ball of flames. "It's me." The man shouted, "Don't go over there." That figure was none other than Su Zimo. At that moment, the situation was chaotic and demonic chi was everywhere. Spirit consciousnesses that were released would be scattered and it was impossible to send voice transmissions with spirit consciousnesses. Su Zimo could only make a move personally to stop Monkey and the others. First, "Young Master! Master!" Monkey and the rest exclaimed in surprise as their faces were filled with joy. Su Zimo took a step forward. "This tomb is extremely dangerous. Don't go over. Follow me first." With that said, Su Zimo led the way and retreated with Monkey and the others. Although some of the fiend demons in the crowd recognized Su Zimo, the treasures were right before them and they were all in a killing frenzy. None of them could care about him. When they arrived at the periphery, Su Zimo said in a deep voice, "Something will definitely happen later on. If you guys see me attack, don't worry. Take care of yourselves and return to Howling Moon Mountain as soon as possible. At that time, I'll naturally return to look for you guys." When Monkey and the others saw Su Zimo's stern expression, their hearts skipped a beat and they nodded in agreement. Suddenly, a commotion sounded from the Thousand Demon Tomb. It was as though something was being torn apart and sliced apart forcefully. Chi! 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 A series of blinding white lights shot out from beneath the Thousand Demon Tomb with incomparable sharpness and tore the tomb apart. Many fiend demons that were fighting for the treasures above the tomb could not react in time and were sliced into two by the white lights. Their limbs flew everywhere and fresh blood spewed everywhere. The white lights that shot out from beneath the tomb increased in number. The Thousand Demons' tomb was already filled with cracks. Corpses that were still warm were piled up on top of it, and blood flowed like a river. In that instant, more than 10,000 fiend demons died. Even their essence spirits could not escape. Haka Dojin said sternly, "When the heavens release its killing intent, the stars will shift. The killing intent of this sword art can even change the trajectory of the stars. Those fiend demons will only be sending themselves to their deaths if they head forward. The heaven-slaying sword art is about to be born and the heavens are going to use the blood of fiend demons as a tribute to the sword art." The 6 overlords in midair hollered at the same time, "All of you, retreat immediately." Although they did not know what was happening beneath the tomb, even they felt their hearts skip a beat when they saw the white lights that shot out. Was that sword chi? What sort of sword chi was it that possessed such might that even the 6 of them were about to be sliced down? Chi! Chi! The moment the 6 overlords said that, an even more dense sword chi burst forth from beneath the tomb. It was incomparably blinding and surged into the clouds like a white chain. Not many fiend demons that charged into the tomb were spared. Monkey and the others stood far away and felt a sense of trepidation when they saw that. If Su Zimo had not stopped them in time, they would have been reduced to corpses in Thousand Demon Valley by now. Boom! Right then, the Thousand Demon Tomb exploded completely. A gigantic ball of light rose slowly from the ground with a blinding light that resembled a blazing sun, surrounded by endless sword chi. The 6 overlords were shocked and retreated in a flash. The sword chi on the ball of light was way too terrifying. If they had reacted slightly slower and were sucked in, their essence spirits would have been destroyed. What's that? What sort of treasure is that? To think that it possesses such might to trigger such a universal phenomenon. The 6 overlords' gazes flickered with bewildered expressions. The ball of light was way too gigantic. Their true forms that were dozens of feet tall or even dozens of feet tall were as insignificant as dust in the face of the ball of light. They could not see through the ball of light at all. The moment their spirit consciousnesses descended on the ball of light, they were sliced into pieces by the endless sword chi. A withered yellow ancient scroll. Suddenly, Su Zimo looked up at the ball of light and said softly. The Haka Dojin's heart skipped a beat and he asked hurriedly, "You can see what's inside?" If he was not wrong, the ball of light should have been created by the heaven-slaying sword art. However, even with his cultivation, he could not see through the ball of light. There was no way he could see what was inside. "I can vaguely see some of it," Su Zimo nodded. His right eye had become extremely strange. It was completely white, and a blazing light was condensed within it, but it was not emitted. He was already secretly circulating his illumination dragon eye. "That doesn't make sense," the Haka Dojin frowned. "Given your cultivation realm, you won't be able to see through this ball of light even if you cultivate the illumination dragon eye." The Haka Dojin paused and pondered for a moment. A thought flashed through his mind as he blurted out, "I've got it, it's the illumination stone." Chapter 878. The Haka Dojin said, "If we can see through the ball of light, we'll have the upper hand. Should we attack now?" Su Zimo asked. "Let's wait a little longer." The Haka Dojin was extremely calm as he said deeply, "There are others nearby." "Others?" Su Zimo frowned slightly. He heard clearly that the Haka Dojin was not referring to other fiend demons, he was referring to someone else. Right then, the old ape's white brows fluttered despite the absence of wind. He spun around suddenly and glared at the void not far away with a sharp gaze, shouting, "Who's there? Come on out." Fufu. A laughter filled with mockery sounded in the void as a leisurely voice said, "You're just a bunch of beasts. What can you do to me if I come out?" Immediately after, a fluctuation appeared in midair. A man in luxurious robes arrived on the wind. He was suave with exquisite features and was handsome. Wielding a folding fan in his hands, he looked indescribably suave. "How dare you? Who are you calling a beast?" Your aura. A cultivator. He's a cultivator." Many high-level fiend demons swept their gazes and quickly sensed that this person did not have any demonic chi. Instead, he exuded the aura of a cultivator. The overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp said coldly, "You're merely the Dharma Dao Jun of the human race. You must have a death wish to come alone." The Dharma Dao Jun's combat strength was comparable to high-level fiend demons. However, the newcomer did not panic in the slightest against the ferocious gazes of so many fiend demons. Instead, he was calm and his lips curled into a sinister smile. Su Zimo had noticed the emblem on this person's sleeves long ago and knew that he was from Cloud Rain Sect, one of the 7 fiend sections. "It's him." The Haka Dojin's voice sounded. Su Zimo asked, "Senior, you know him?" "His Dao title is Cloud Rain and he's the titular disciple of Cloud Rain Sect." Haka Dojin seemed to be quite displeased with this person. He sneered and said, "Hee, I didn't expect that after 5,000 years, this pervert's cultivation still hasn't improved at all." Although he heard Haka Dojin's words, Su Zimo did not dare to underestimate him. One had to know that as one's cultivation deepened, it would be more difficult to make any progress. After cultivating to the Dharma characteristic realm, one's lifespan would reach 10,000 years. It was normal for one to cultivate for hundreds or thousands of years without any improvement in their cultivation. Furthermore, Dao Lord Cloud Rain was not an ordinary person to be able to remain as a titular disciple for more than 5,000 years. To correct 2 of your mistakes. Dao Lord Cloud Rain looked at the overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp and smiled leisurely, replying unhurriedly, "Firstly, I'm not here alone. Secondly, you can't kill me either." Just as he finished speaking, a snowstorm suddenly appeared in the air, and the temperature plummeted. Then, the endless snowflakes in the air continued to condense, forming a long bridge of ice and snow that spanned across the distant horizon. A beautiful figure walked over. In the blink of an eye, she arrived before them. It was another human, Dharma Dao Jun. "It's a cultivator from Snowdrift Valley," Su Zimo said in a deep voice. Haka Dojin nodded. "I don't recognize this woman. She should be my junior. However, since she's qualified to stand shoulder to shoulder with Dao Lord Cloud Rain, she shouldn't be weak." Another one with a death wish. The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain roared in laughter. The overlord of Thousand Snake Island laughed as well and said coquettishly, "Io, this is a great beauty. Can you guys bear to kill her?" Due to the cultivation techniques that the female cultivators of Snowdrift Valley cultivated, they exuded a cold aura from head to toe, resembling ice mountains that kept others at arm's length. However, this woman's looks were indeed refined and otherworldly, capable of toppling nations. "You guys had better make way," the female cultivator of Snowdrift Valley said coldly. He. The overlord of Thousand Snake Island could not help but laugh. "Ice Beauty, this is Thousand Demon Valley, not your sect. You've come to the wrong place if you want to throw your weight around." The female cultivator of Snowdrift Valley did not say anything else but her expression turned colder. Su Zimo frowned slightly and murmured, "What are they doing here? Could it be? They should be here for the heaven-slaying sword art." Haka Dojin nodded. "I reckon that someone among them has deduced that the sword art is about to appear through the universal phenomenon of Thousand Demon Valley. Initially, it was already extremely difficult for Su Zimo to snatch the sword art right under the noses of so many high-level fiend demons and 6 overlords. Now that there were 2 more Dharma Dao Jun, it was even more difficult for Su Zimo to snatch the sword art. The old ape asked in a deep voice, "What are the 2 of you here for?" "Of course, we're here to retrieve something that belongs to the human race." Dao Lord Cloud Rain extended his folding fan and tapped the gigantic ball of light that hovered in midair not far away. Ha 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 ha. The overlord of Silvermoon Valley burst into laughter as though he had heard the funniest joke in the world. "This is a treasure that appeared in Thousand Demon Valley. Who said that it belongs to the human race?" "I said so," another voice sounded. "Sure." A streak of light shone at the end of the horizon and the sound of a sharp blade tearing through the air could be heard, arriving instantly. A white-robed cultivator stood in midair with a sword behind his back. His long hair fluttered and he had a proud expression. His gaze was sharp like a sword and he exuded a sharp aura. It was the Dharma Dao Jun from Sword Sect. "This person is not simple either," Haka Adojin's voice sounded. Su Zimo nodded. The courage and boldness of the 3 of them to venture deep into Thousand Demon Valley was unmatched by anyone else. The Dao Lord of Sword Sect pointed to the gigantic ball of light in midair and said indifferently, "That belongs to the human race. Who wants to stop me now that I'm taking it away?" His words were extremely unreasonable and arrogant. He did not take the demons of Thousand Demon Valley seriously at all. "I want to stop you. What are you going to do about it?" A high-level fiend demon of Silvermoon Valley stood out. His gigantic wolf body streaked through the void and his pair of glistening green eyes glared at the Dao Lord of Sword Sect with a sharp killing intent. "If you want to stop me, you'll die," the Dao Lord of Sword Sect said slowly. Before he finished his sentence, the Dao Lord of Sword Sect drew his sword in reverse. Thereafter, a terrifying sword beam shone and tore through the void, descending on the head of the fiend demon of Silvermoon Valley instantly. Everywhere the sword chi passed, the life force in the void seemed to be sucked dry. "Lifeless sword art!" Haka Adojin exclaimed softly. Exclamation point. Before the fiend demon of Silvermoon Valley could do anything, his glabella was penetrated by the sword beam and his life force drained rapidly. In the blink of an eye, his body withered. A high-level fiend demon was killed instantly with a single slash. Su Zimo felt his scalp prickle at the sight. Although he was merely watching from afar, he could not summon any thoughts of resisting against that slash. All of his trump cards seemed to have become unable to withstand a single blow in front of this sword. Perhaps the power of the divine phoenix bone was the only thing he had that could defend against that slash. However, Su Zimo knew very well that the slash was enough to kill him before he could even summon the divine phoenix bone. Lifeless sword art. Once a slash is released, all life is lost. That slash is truly stunning. Haka Adojin said slowly, "Legend has it that the founding master of Sword Sect obtained one of the 3 great ancient sword arts. The lifeless sword art was derived from that ancient sword art." Chapter 879. When he heard that, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat. If the lifeless sword art was derived from one of the 3 ancient sword arts, how terrifying would the power of the 3 ancient sword arts be? Su Zimo was filled with endless anticipation towards the heaven-slaying sword art. Back then, the reason why the founding master of Sword Sect was able to reign supreme in the Tao of the Sword and establish the #1 sword sect in Tianhuang mainland was because of that ancient sword art. Haka Adojin said, "As for which of the 3 pieces the Sword Emperor obtained, that's unknown." The entire battlefield fell into a momentary silence after a high-level fiend demon was slain and his essence spirit was destroyed. Everyone, including the 6 overlords, was stunned by that slash. A moment later, the old ape's white brows fluttered and his gaze shifted to Dao Lord Cloud Rain. If I'm not wrong, this should be Dao Lord Cloud Rain who was ranked 2nd on the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago. You have a good eye, Dao Lord Cloud Rain fanned himself gently and chuckled in a devilish manner. The Dharma characteristic ranking. In the cultivation world of Tianhuang mainland, there were three rankings that were the most famous. They were the Jin Dan Phenomenon ranking, the Heaven and Earth Dharma Characteristic ranking and the Peerless Divine Power ranking. All of them were published by Enigma Palace and included almost all the paragons and monster incarnates in history. At the same time, they were the most authoritative and famous rankings. Among them, the Jin Dan Phenomenon ranking was changed once every 100 years. The Heaven and Earth Dharma Characteristic ranking was changed once every 1,000 years. As for the Peerless Divine Power ranking, it recorded the most terrifying peerless divine powers in history unless the later generations could create divine powers that were stronger than their predecessors. Otherwise, the Peerless Divine Power ranking would almost never change. The Tao techniques of the seven fiend sects are all different. For example, Overlord Palace specializes in body tempering, Illusion Fiend Cult focuses on mental cultivation and Cloud Rain Sect specializes in Haka Adojin Harumft in disdain. Overall, the combat strength of Cloud Rain Sect cultivators is ranked last among the seven fiend sects. Back then, he was indeed capable to be able to fight his way to second on the Dharma characteristic ranking and suppress many paragons of the immortal, Buddhist and fiend sections. I just don't know if he has made any progress after all these years. In midair, the old ape's gaze shifted as he looked at the female cultivator of Snowdrift Valley and the man from Sword Sect. He said slowly, I'm sure the two of them aren't nobodies since they can come together with Tao Lord Cloud Rain. I haven't left the valley all these years, so I'm a little blind and didn't recognize the two of you. Tao Lord Cloud Rain and the other two could naturally tell that the old ape was the most composed among the six overlords and his combat strength was unpredictable. However, the female cultivators of Snowdrift Valley were indifferent by nature. They might not even bother with cultivators, let alone fiend demons. The man from the Sword Sect was even more arrogant. He put his hands behind his back and sheathed his sword at some point in time. He looked up at the sky as if he did not hear the old ape's question. On the other hand, Tao Lord Cloud Rain smiled. Fairy, your Tao title is Snowdrift. At that point, Tao Lord Cloud Rain paused intentionally. Everyone realized that this was another titular disciple. Tao Lord Cloud Rain's smile deepened as he continued, Fairy Snowdrift was the number one of the Dharma characteristic ranking 2,000 years ago. The expressions of the six overlords changed slightly. As overlords, they naturally knew about the Dharma characteristic ranking of the cultivation world. There were a total of 72 people on the Dharma characteristic ranking. Fairy Snowdrift's combat strength was imaginable for her to be ranked number one. Just the names of these two people were enough to crush someone to death. One was number 2 and the other was number 1 on the Dharma characteristic ranking. This was equivalent to Su Zimo and Diin of the Phenomenon ranking in the ancient battlefield. If the two of them appeared together, there was no perfected being Jin Dan who wouldn't be afraid. Tao Lord Cloud Rain pointed to the man from Sword Sect and teased with a smile, I advise you guys not to provoke this guy. He's the number 1 of the previous Dharma characteristic ranking and the current titular disciple of Sword Sect. His Tao title is Immortal Sword. No one can survive his sword. None can live once his sword is drawn. 2 number 1 and 1 number 2 on the Dharma characteristic ranking and 3 titular disciples, any one of those titles was enough to shock the world. Now that the 3 Tao lords were gathered in Thousand Demon Valley, it was obvious what they were after. So, you're a Tao lord on the Dharma characteristic ranking. No wonder you're so fearless, the overlord of Silvermoon Valley said coldly with a cold expression, however, I don't know if you're worthy of your reputation. I don't care who you are. Since you dare to steal from Thousand Demon Valley, I won't let you leave alive. The overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp's voice was firm and resolute. Many high-level fiend demons present were intimidated by the titles of the 3 Tao lords. However, what sort of people were the 6 overlords? They ruled over an area with countless demons under their command and were resolute and unshakable. There was no way the 6 overlords would be afraid since their cultivation realms were similar. Furthermore, the gigantic ball of light was so extraordinary that it attracted 3 Tao lords of the human race to venture deep into Thousand Demon Valley. That made the 6 overlords even more curious about the ball of light, and they were determined to get their hands on it. The 6 overlords exchanged glances. Even though they had fought against one another earlier, the 6 overlords had come to a tacit understanding, as they all shared the same thought. No matter who obtained the ball of light in the end, they could not allow the 3 Dharma Dao Jun of the human race to take it away. Thousand Demon Valley could not afford to lose face either. Suddenly, the world went silent. The many fiend demons, 6 overlords and 3 Dao lords were motionless. To begin with, this place was filled with a shuddering killing intent after the birth of the heaven-slaying sword art. Now that both sides were in a stalemate, the killing intent in the void was even more intense and shuddering. Attack! After a brief silence, the 6 overlords hollered at almost the same time. Roar! Roar! Demons roared in the world and shook the world. Mountains swayed and sand flew everywhere. The 6 overlords reverted to their true forms and attacked at the same time, charging towards Tao Lord Cloud Rain and the other 2. The other high-level fiend demons surrounded them as well. Instantly, dermic powers howled and surged. Countless demonic arts tore through the air and enveloped down. A terrifying might descended and was omnipresent, causing the weather to change. Even mid-level fiend demons would be killed instantly if they charged into a battlefield as such, let alone low-level fiend demons. The fiend demons in all directions retreated continuously and watched from afar. Tao Lord Cloud Rain focused his gaze, and a sinister glint shone in his eyes, as though there were endless threads coiling around them. 7 emotions threads. Tao Lord Cloud Rain hollered softly. In midair, threads suddenly appeared on the high-level fiend demons that Tao Lord Cloud Rain's gaze swept past. They were colorful and beautiful. The threads coiled around their bodies continuously. The more they gathered, the denser they became. Furthermore, the other ends of the threads were densely packed in Tao Lord Cloud Rain's palms. 7 emotions threads. To think that I would see this dermic art again after 5,000 years, Hakka Dojin's voice was filled with emotions. The 7 emotions threads is an ultimate skill of Cloud Rain's sect, and there are extremely few cultivators who can cultivate it successfully. Tao Lord Cloud Rain is one of them. Be it cultivators or fiend demons, all of us have 7 emotions and 6 desires. The 7 emotions threads are used to trigger the 7 emotions in living beings. The heavier the emotions, the greater the impact and damage they will receive. Following Hakka Dojin's description, Su Zimo watched as the high-level fiend demons that were coiled by the 7 emotions threads began to bleed. The 7 emotions threads had left bloody wounds on their bodies. It was a ghastly sight. Chapter 880. Many high-level fiend demons were entangled by the 7 emotions threads and were drenched in blood. They could not release any demonic arts and sank deeper into the abyss in excruciating pain. The other end of the 7 emotions threads was in Tao Lord Cloud Rain's hands. The high-level fiend demons were like puppets controlled by Tao Lord Cloud Rain. They could not control their own lives and deaths. Su Zimo was secretly speechless when he heard about the origins of the 7 emotions threads. As his cultivation increased, he could come into contact with higher levels, and the dermic arts and secret skills he came into contact with were much stronger as well. In fact, some of the dermic arts were strange and impossible to defend against. The 7 emotions threads belonged to one of them. Be it cultivators or fiend demons, as long as they were living beings, they would have the 7 emotions: joy, anger, worry, longing, sorrow, fear and shock. Without the 7 emotions, it meant that they were lifeless. For example, rocks. Once a rock cultivated into a spirit, it would definitely possess the 7 emotions, that was all. According to Hakka Dojin, as long as one possessed the 7 emotions, it was inevitable that they would be restrained by the 7 emotions threads. In this battle, the angrier, more worried and fearful one was, the more seven emotions threads would be produced in their bodies and they would sink deeper into the abyss until they died. Exclamation point. There were already high-level fiend demons with too many seven emotions threads on their bodies. After struggling continuously, they were minced by the seven emotions threads and turned into blood mists without a corpse. Even their essence spirits could not escape. This Dermic art was truly frightening. The most frightening thing was that Tao Lord Cloud Rain targeted all the fiend demons present when he released the seven emotions threads. None of them were spared. How bold must he be to suppress everyone single-handedly? That included the 6 overlords. Of course, Tao Lord Cloud Rain's strength would definitely be dispersed since he was attacking all the fiend demons. As such, it was still difficult for the 7 emotions threads to trap the 6 overlords. The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain burned with raging flames and burned the 7 emotions threads repeatedly. Although the 7 emotions threads surged out endlessly, they could not trap him. The overlord of Thousand Snake Island's body was already lacerated by the 7 emotions threads and dark green blood flowed out. The moment the blood came into contact with the 7 emotions threads, they corroded and snapped before long. The other overlords used their own methods to break free from the 7 emotions threads and charged towards Tao Lord Cloud Rain as well. The old ape seemed to be in his twilight years, but he was at his most intense when fighting against the 7 emotions threads. His body expanded, and his flesh swelled. He forcefully broke free from the threads of love. His entire body was cut open, and blood flowed out like a fountain. However, his expression did not change. Kill. The old ape strode forward and swung imminent, smashing down viciously at Tao Lord Cloud Rain's head. In an instant, a dazzling golden light shot out. Tao Lord Cloud Rain narrowed his eyes and retreated, as though he did not dare to take the attack head-on. Shixia Cloud Valley's overlord's eyes emitted 2 rays of multicolored light as he sped through the air, directly severing the endless 7 emotions threads. Many high-level fiendish demons seized the opportunity to break free. World falling snow. A bone-chilling voice rang out, and the temperature on the battlefield plummeted. It was Lady Snowflake. Without warning, snowflakes fell from the sky. Every single snowflake was in the shape of a hexagonal crystal, and there seemed to be extremely profound talisman patterns carved on it. They were sparkling, translucent, and extremely beautiful. Although the snowflakes were beautiful, they killed without mercy. The snowflakes were way too dense and some high-level fiendish demons could not dodge in time. A snowflake landed on their shoulders and instantly, a wound was formed with blood gushing out. Scenes like that happened repeatedly. Between the heavens and the earth, goose feather-like snow was constantly falling, and there was also a poignant but beautiful blood. The howls of fiendish demons sounded one after another. Compared to the strange scene of Tao Lord Cloud Rain's attack, Fairy Snowflake's Dermic art was even more tragic and otherworldly than before. Fairy Snowflake walked on the snow with her white dress fluttering in an indescribably beautiful manner. With a wave of her hand, all the demons bowed. That was truly a shocking scene. Su Zimo looked at that with a yearning. He did not know when he would be able to cultivate to that level. The Dharma Dao Jun was already at the upper middle of the cultivation world and had a noble status. No matter which sect or faction he descended upon, no one would dare to slight him. Tao Lord Cloud Rain's group of 3 who barged into the 8 demon regions and slaughtered their way through them were even more enviable. This was the 1000 Demon Meet. Almost all the strongest high-level fiendish demons of Thousand Demon Valley were gathered here. How bold did it take for 3 Tao Lords to venture so deep into this place? Watch out for my demonic art. The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain roared and his glabella shone. Dermic powers surged from his body and flames surged, surging into the skies and sweeping through the firmaments. Swoosh! The golden flames blanketed the skies with a frightening might and incinerated countless snowflakes. Fairy Snowflake was neither enraged nor annoyed that her Dermic art was dispelled and her expression was unchanged. Shoo! 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 A series of bedazzling sword lights shone in midair. Sword chi streaked, and everywhere they passed, there was no life. Lifeless sword art. Dao Lord Immortal Sword attacked once more. Unlike Dao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowflake, Dao Lord Immortal Sword's attacks were filled with killing intent. Within a few breaths, more than 10 high-level fiendish demons were decapitated and their essence spirits were destroyed by his sword chi. The old ape and the overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp had to attack at the same time to destroy the sword chi in midair. Many fiendish demons were stirred by this battle. An overlord against a Dao Lord. This was a clash between the top Dharma characteristic experts of the demon and human race. If not for the appearance of the heaven-slaying sword art, such a grand scene would have been hard to come by in 1,000 years. Su Zimo's gaze was bright as he narrowed his eyes and observed every single detail of the battlefield. He was different from others. The other fiendish demons were merely here to watch the show. As for him, he wanted to fight for the heaven-slaying sword art. If he told others about his thoughts, he would definitely be mocked endlessly. This was a fight between top Dharma characteristic experts. A low-level fiendish demon like him would be killed before he could even get close. It was a fool's dream if he wanted to snatch the heaven-slaying sword art right under the noses of so many Dharma characteristic experts. Right now, Su Zimo did not have any leads as well. The only thing he could rely on was Haka-Dojin. He was still waiting for an opportunity. In midair, the battle between the two sides intensified. Although there were many fiendish demons in Thousand Demon Valley, they could not take down the 3 Dharma Daojun even after a long time. On the other hand, fiendish demons on their side were dying continuously. In reality, if not for the fact that the 6 overlords were bearing most of the power of the 3 Dao Lords, the other high-level fiendish demons would have died a long time ago. Gradually, both sides entered a stalemate. Although the gigantic ball of light was right before them, it was extremely difficult for anyone to extricate themselves from the battlefield. Dao Lord Immortal Sword frowned. This was Thousand Demon Valley after all. Now that there was such a huge commotion, it would be easier for the top experts of Thousand Demon Valley to be alerted the longer it dragged on. If a grand demon appeared, the consequences would be dire. At that thought, Dao Lord Immortal Sword said as he attacked, "Fellow Taoists, please use your full strength to defend for me for a moment. I'll go retrieve the item inside. I promise the 2 of you in the name of my Dao title that I'll definitely reward the 2 of you handsomely in the future if I succeed." Although Dao Lord Immortal Sword had a calm expression, he was anxious internally. "All right." Dao Lord Cloud Rain replied loudly. This trip was worth it to obtain a promise from Dao Lord Immortal Sword. Chapter 881. Dao Lord Immortal Sword knew what was within the ball of light. He could not afford to make any mistakes on this trip. There was a high chance that he would become the second person apart from the Sword Emperor after obtaining that sword art. However, he was smart and did not tell Dao Lord Cloud Rain and Immortal Sword about the true contents of the ball of light. He merely said that it was a remnant of Sword Sect. He also believed that Dao Lord Cloud Rain and Immortal Sword Emperor would definitely not be able to guess what the ball of light was. There were extremely few people who could deduce the birth of the heaven-slaying sword art through such a universal phenomenon. In the ancient books of Sword Sect, he had accidentally browsed through a sentence similar to a gatha left behind by the Sword Emperor back then. When the heavens release their killing intent, the stars will shift. When the earth releases its killing intent, dragons and snakes will rise. When the humans release their killing intent, the heavens and earth will overturn. Through that sentence, he deduced that there was a high chance that this was a universal phenomenon caused by the birth of the heaven-slaying sword art. Of course, he could not be certain either. It was only when he entered this place and saw the terrifying sword intent emitted by the ball of light that Dao Lord Immortal Sword was truly certain that the heaven-slaying sword art was within the ball of light. Fellow Taoists, just hold on for a moment. Just a moment. Dao Lord Immortal Sword said and retreated. Shoo! In midair, a sword beam flashed and Tao Lord Immortal Sword sped towards the gigantic ball of light that was hovering in midair. Where do you think you're going? The Overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp roared and swung the spear in his hands. His eyes shone with a metallic luster as he swept towards Tao Lord Immortal Sword's figure. Tao Lord Immortal Sword did not dodge or avoid and continued forward as though he did not see anything. Crocodile Demon, get through me first. Tao Lord Cloud Rain retracted his smile and turned stern. Tossing the folding fan in his hands gently, it turned into a pitch-black beam of light that collided heavily against the Overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp's spear. Clang! The folding fan collided with the spear and let out the sound of metal clashing. The spear trembled gently and opened up a gap. In a flash, Tao Lord Immortal Sword had already passed through that fleeting opportunity. Tao Lord Cloud Rain slapped in reverse and pressed down towards the Overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp through the void. Dermic powers were endless as they gathered in his palm. In the void, a gigantic Dermic power handprint appeared and arrived with a bang. 6 Desires Palm. Haka Adojin said softly, the 7 Emotions Threads and the 6 Desires Palm are both ultimate skills of Cloud Rain Sect. However, the 6 Desires Palm focuses on killing. After releasing this absolute art, Yunyu is going all out. The Confusion Mist Swamp's Overlord sensed danger and his eyes lit up. He let out a long howl, innate ability, Rock Body. On the body of the Overlord of the dense mist swamp, coarse protrusions grew out. They were like pieces of rock that stuck tightly to his body, with only 2 fingers and eyes exposed. This was the innate divine ability of the dense mist swamp's Overlord. Once it was released, the defensive power of one's physical body would increase tremendously. Even powerful Tao Lord Dermic weapons might not be able to injure his true body, let alone Dermic arts. Bang! The giant handprint came crashing down. The Overlord of Confusion Mist Swamp reverted to his true form and was at least dozens of feet tall. However, he was sent flying by the gigantic palm and nearly fell from midair. Boom! 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 Tao Lord Cloud Rain waved his hands continuously and sent out a total of 6 gigantic palm prints. The entire void was trembling. Go! Tao Lord Cloud Rain tossed the folding fan in his hands out once more. He opened his folding fan, revealing a series of ink and wash paintings. Pairs of naked handsome men and beautiful women were flirting with each other in different poses. Yin and yang intertwined in an extremely seductive manner. The moment the folding fan opened, the men and women within seemed to have come alive and squirmed continuously, as though they could evoke the most primitive urges in the hearts of many fiend demons. Roar! Some of the fiend demons felt their blood boil with a single glance and fell into a frenzy. Panting heavily, the demon turned around and glared at the Overlord of Thousand Snake Island who was not far away. He had already lost his mind and lunged forward. The Overlord of Thousand Snake Island had a frosty expression and killed the demon without hesitation. However, right after, another fiend demon lost his mind and charged over. F***CK. Even with the temperament of the Overlord of Thousand Snake Island, she could not help but curse. The battlefield was in chaos. Fairy Snowdrift's expression turned even colder as she surveyed her surroundings and conjured hand seals repeatedly. With a wave of her jade-like hands, frost spread out endlessly. Frost freeze. Fairy Snowdrift hollered with a voice as cold as ice. The entire void was like the surface of a calm lake. Frost began to appear continuously and spread in all directions, enveloping many fiend demons layer by layer. Some of the fiend demons reacted extremely quickly and channeled their dermic powers the moment a layer of frost appeared on their bodies, breaking free immediately. Some of the fiend demons reacted slower, and by the time the frost covered most of their bodies, their expressions were already frozen on their faces and they could not move at all. It was an extremely shocking scene. In the blink of an eye, gigantic blocks of ice appeared in midair one after another. Unlike the other fiend demons that were spectating the battle, Su Zimo was standing extremely close to the center of the battlefield. However, at that moment, even with his physique and bloodline, he felt a sense of discomfort. Waves of cold air surged over. Su Zimo furrowed his brows slightly. If he had not channeled his bloodline with all his might, he would not have been able to withstand the invasion of the cold air. This was only the periphery of the battlefield. If he was at the center of the battlefield, he would have been frozen into an ice sculpture before he could even approach the ball of light. At this moment, a warm feeling spread from his left wrist. It was like a warm current that flowed through his limbs and bones. Before long, Su Zimo's body warmed up. He knew that the Haka Dojin was helping him. Don't be hasty, wait a little longer. The Haka Dojin's voice sounded with an unusually calm tone. Far away, almost all the fiend demons were watching the earth-shattering battle. However, Monkey and the others were looking at Su Zimo from time to time. At that moment, Su Zimo had already changed his clothes. The muscles on his face twitched and his initial scholarly aura was gone, replaced by a rough look. In the blink of an eye, he had turned into a completely different person. All the demons were spectating the battle and none of them noticed that. However, Monkey and the others saw it clearly. What is bro trying to do? As though he had thought of something, the Linghu's mouth was agape and he was dumbfounded. Don't tell me that young master is trying to. Little Fox frowned slightly and her eyes were filled with worry. She looked at Su Zimo and then at the ball of light in midair. Solitary Cloud shook his head with a grim expression. How is that possible? Just the shockwaves from the dermic powers of a battle of this level are enough to kill low-level and mid-level fiend demons. Master won't be able to get close at all, let alone snatch the ball of light away in front of so many Dharma characteristic experts. Solitary Cloud was right. Earlier on, after Fairy Snowdrift released the top-tier dermic art of Snowdrift Valley, more than 10 high-level fiend demons were frozen for eternity and fell without waking up. They fell to the ground and shattered into ice shards. Although Su Zimo's physique and bloodline were strong, there was no way he could withstand the invasion of that power. Little Fox pondered for a moment and continued, most importantly, how is young master going to leave even if he manages to snatch the ball of light away? The current situation was different from the previous day when Su Zimo escaped from the Blood Sea. At that moment, the 6 overlords and 3 Dao lords were all present. Furthermore, the 9 top Dharma characteristic experts were all staring at the gigantic ball of light in midair. If anyone tried to snatch it away, they would definitely be attacked by the 9 top Dharma characteristic experts. Even if Su Zimo managed to obtain it and released blood escape, he would definitely not be able to escape. Chapter 882. In the Void. The battle had reached its climax. In just a short period of time, more than 100 high-level fiend demons had died. The 6 overlords were enraged and were truly enraged. Apart from the fact that the 3 Dao lords were truly supreme paragons of the human race, they were restrained in every way possible because they had just experienced a huge battle just now. Their stamina and combat strength were greatly reduced when they fought against the 3 Dao lords. However, they no longer had a way out. If the 3 Dao lords were allowed to enter Thousand Demon Valley, defeat the 6 overlords and snatch away that unknown treasure, Thousand Demon Valley would become the laughing stock of Tianhuang mainland. The 3 Dao lords' reputation would also reach its peak through this battle. Roar! The old ape reared his head and roared into the skies. Channeling his bloodline to its limits, he shook his mighty body and countless frost fell. Boom! The old ape stomped down with a single foot and cracks appeared in the initially frozen void, expanding rapidly. Shatter! The old ape leaped up and swung imminent, smashing down viciously towards the void ahead. A blinding golden light descended instantly. Boom! The frost in the void shattered completely. Countless high-level fiendish demons struggled to break free. Their bodies were trembling as they panted heavily. In just a short period of time, the demons' faces were already turning green from the cold. If this continued for a moment longer, their essence spirits would have been frozen and they would have died completely, never to break free. Although their cultivation realms were similar, they were way too inferior compared to the 3 Tao Lords. The temperature on the battlefield was still frighteningly low. Apart from the 6 overlords, the other high-level fiend demons were already cowering in fear, not daring to advance. Burn! The overlord of Golden Flames Mountain opened his mouth wide and spat out a ball of golden flames that swept towards the shattered frost on the battlefield. At the same time, he bit the tip of his tongue gently and spat out a stream of essence blood into the golden flames. The flames intensified and formed a golden sea of flames that burned the heavens. The frost turned into mist and the battlefield was filled with mist. Suddenly, 2 rainbow lights burst forth from the eyes of the overlord of Vermilion Cloud Valley and entered Tao Lord Cloud Rain's folding fan instantly. The dermic weapons of the overlords descended at the same time. It smashed Tao Lord Cloud Rain's folding fan to the ground and its light dimmed. The overlords of Silvermoon Valley, Thousand Snake Island, and Confusion Mist Swamp attacked with all their might. As their demonic techniques clashed, the 6 Desires palm did not last long before it was instantly defeated. In the blink of an eye, Tao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift's methods were dispelled. The 2 of them looked a little pale. It seemed like fighting against the demons and the 6 overlords had taken a huge toll on the both of them and they could not hold on any longer. On the other side, Tao Lord Immortal Sword arrived before the ball of light and did not dare to advance recklessly. The light surrounding the gigantic ball of light was the sword chi released by the heaven-slaying sword art. It was so sharp that even he did not dare to test it. Tao Lord Immortal Sword narrowed his eyes and waved his hands repeatedly, conjuring hand seals. A gigantic sword appeared in midair and slashed down fiercely at the ball of light. Boom! When the huge sword landed on the ball of light, it let out an earth-shattering sound. The ball of light trembled, as though it was stimulated by something. Sword chi burst forth one after another and streaked through the void, slicing it with a chilling killing intent. Tao Lord Immortal Sword had already dodged. However, he charged forward quickly and conjured hand seals. Another gigantic sword slashed down. Boom! The ball of light trembled once more and sword chi filled the air. Boom! 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 In the blink of an eye, Tao Lord Immortal Sword slashed down 3 more times. Others could not sense or see it clearly. However, Su Zimo could clearly see with his illumination dragon eye that the sword chi released by the ball of light would weaken significantly with every slash of Tao Lord Immortal Sword and its light would dim gradually as well. It was no longer as blinding as when it was first born, as though it wanted to destroy everything. Su Zimo realized that this might be a secret skill of sword sect that was establishing a connection with the heaven-slaying sword art. Tao Lord Immortal Sword was attempting to subdue the heaven-slaying sword art in the ball of light. Once the light around the ball of light dissipated completely, the heaven-slaying sword art would naturally belong to Tao Lord Immortal Sword. Or perhaps, there was no need for the light to dissipate. As long as the sword chi around the ball of light was weakened to a certain extent, Tao Lord Immortal Sword would be able to barge in and obtain the heaven-slaying sword art. Brother Immortal Sword, how is it? There was a hint of urgency in Tao Lord Cloud Rain's voice. At that moment, he was no longer as calm and composed as he was at the beginning. Although Fairy Snowdrift still had a cold expression, she looked much more wretched than before. The 2 of them were already struggling against the full-powered counterattack of the 6 overlords and could be suppressed at any moment. Fellow Taoists, hold on for a little longer. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's voice was calm as he looked at the ball of light that was dimming with an incomparably fervent gaze. He was about to obtain the heaven-slaying sword art. He would not allow any accidents to happen. A cold glint flashed through Tao Lord Immortal Sword's eyes as he watched Tao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift retreat in defeat. Slapping his storage bag, he took out a grayish item and tossed it out. The item floated in midair and hovered above the heads of the demons, unfolding slowly. Demon Sealing Diagram. How did that treasure end up in his hands? Hakaedojin's voice sounded in Suzumo's mind with a hint of shock. What? Suzumo asked with a voice transmission. Hakaedojin said, this demon sealing diagram is a Dharma treasure refined by a mighty figure of the ancient era. It's useless against cultivators, but it's extremely powerful against demons. Suzumo nodded. In other words, this was a treasure that targeted demons, similar to the demon revealing mirror. Before long, Hakaedojin seemed to have discovered something and exclaimed softly in realization. The demon sealing diagram is already damaged. No wonder he's willing to take it out. Suzumo focused his gaze. Although the demon sealing diagram was called a diagram, it looked like it was made from the hide of some unknown beast. There were even hairs growing on it and it gave off an ancient and savage aura. It was clear that a large piece of the beast hide was missing and the edges were jagged. It was torn into two by an unknown force. A frightening might spread from the descent of the demon sealing diagram. In the battlefield, all the high-level fiend demons, including the 6 territorial lords, seemed to be restrained by an invisible force and could not break free. Roar! The old ape growled deeply and refused to submit. His bones crackled as though they were about to fall apart. The overlord of Thousand Snake Island had the weakest physique and spat out a mouthful of blood with a pale expression. If that was the case for the overlord, the other fiend demons were even worse. Suzumo was shocked and speechless. That was only a damaged Dharma treasure. What sort of power would a complete demon sealing diagram possess? What was even stranger was that the demon sealing diagram only targeted the fiend demons present. Tao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift were clearly unaffected by the demon sealing diagram and finally had a chance to catch their breaths. Right then, Hakaedojin's voice sounded in Suzumo's mind. It was a single word that was filled with decisiveness. Attack. Chapter 883. Hakaedojin was a Dharma characteristic cultivator to begin with. No one was more experienced than him in a battle of this level and could grasp the opportunity better. Suzumo was already focused. When he heard Hakaedojin's voice, he stomped on the ground without hesitation and leaped into the air, transforming into a streak of light that sped towards the ball of light in the center of the battlefield. This was a form of trust. He trusted Hakaedojin. After Suzumo made his move, he gradually realized the situation on the battlefield. At that moment, all the fiend demons, including the 6 overlords, were suppressed by the demon sealing diagram and could not break free for the time being. Although the demon sealing diagram was strong, it was damaged at the end of the day with more than half of it missing. While it could suppress the demons, it would not last for long. At that moment, Tao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift were almost exhausted and had just heaved a sigh of relief when they relaxed. The only person that Suzumo truly had to face was Tao Lord Immortal Sword. Even so, it was still extremely difficult and dangerous for him to snatch the heaven-slaying sword art. Monkey and the others had been paying attention to Suzumo's movements the entire time. The moment he moved, Monkey and the others sensed it. Look! First is attacking. Young master, be careful. Little Fox clasped her hands in front of her chest and blinked worriedly. In the battlefield in the void, the 6 overlords and many high-level fiend demons were suppressed on the spot by the demon sealing diagram and could not move at all. Now that a figure had barged in, it was extremely eye-catching. The group of demons who were watching the battle at the side also noticed the intruder and exclaimed in shock. Who is that? How dare he enter the battlefield at this moment? He's truly courting death. I've never seen him before. Is he a fiend demon or a cultivator? That person's cultivation realm doesn't seem high. What is he trying to do? Suzumo had already changed his appearance and the black-haired essence spirit presided over his consciousness. His initial head of scarlet hair had been retracted as well. Apart from Monkey and the others, nobody else could recognize him. Under normal circumstances, a Dharma characteristic expert would be able to see through his disguise with a casual sweep of their spirit consciousness. However, two spirit consciousnesses that swept over were isolated by an invisible energy and could not detect Su Zimo's background at all. That was the power of the Mingwang prayer beads. In reality, given Su Zimo's essence spirits, he could not release the true power of the Mingwang prayer beads even if he combined his two essence spirits. Nor could he defend himself against the detection of Dharma characteristic experts' spirit consciousnesses. However, Su Zimo's SS spirit consciousness with the spirit consciousness's background. Su Zimo's essence spirit consciousness as with Zimo, essences, Su's with him. Tao Lord Extreme Fire was a Dharma characteristic expert as well. Although he had lost his physical body, his essence spirit had mostly recovered. Unless one possessed extraordinary skills, it would be difficult for anyone of the same cultivation realm to see through Su Zimo's disguise when he was the one controlling the ultimate treasure of Daming Monastery. In the blink of an eye, Su Zimo had already arrived at the center of the battlefield. He had to pass through the 6 overlords and many high-level fiend demons if he wanted to reach the ball of light. This region was also covered by the demon ceiling diagram. Although the demon ceiling diagram restricted fiend demons immensely, it was useless against Su Zimo. Right now, the black-haired essence spirit presided over his consciousness. This essence spirit did not have any demonic aura and cultivated the top-tier spirit refinement techniques of the immortal and Buddhist Taoists. It was incomparably pure. The demons could only watch helplessly as Su Zimo brushed past them. Another cultivator has appeared. A thought flashed through the minds of all the demons. This person could only be a cultivator if he could travel so effortlessly against the power of the demon ceiling diagram. Tao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift had already noticed Su Zimo as well. As the helpers of Tao Lord Immortal Sword, they had to stop the intruder regardless of whether he was a cultivator or a demon. At that moment, it was clear that the Immortal Sword Tao world was about to succeed and they merely had to defend for a while longer. At that thought, Tao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift exchanged glances with resolute gazes. They channeled their dermic powers once more and attacked at the same time. Bang! 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 3 gigantic palm prints blanketed the skies. Although their dermic powers were clearly weak, they were not to be underestimated. Crack! 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 Fairy Snowdrift waved her jade-like hand and a gigantic ice wall rose from the ground, blocking Su Zimo. No matter how weak Tao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift were, they were still top-tier Dharma characteristic experts and could kill others of the same cultivation realm with ease. It was even more so for a low-level fiend demon like Su Zimo. Given Su Zimo's strength, there was no way he could fight against 2 Tao Lords. He could not withstand the might of the Dharma characteristic realm alone. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's body burned with raging flames and he seemed to have transformed into a gigantic fireball that could melt everything. The surrounding dermic powers were already boiling. The fireball charged forward. Boom! The gigantic fireball collided with the 3 gigantic palm prints and let out a series of deafening booms. Much of the flames on the fireball were extinguished. Immediately after, the gigantic fireball collided with the ice wall. The ice on it melted rapidly. Just as the fireball was about to penetrate, a sword beam slashed over at an extremely fast speed and descended on the fireball. Before the sword beam arrived, more than half of the flames on the fireball were extinguished. Lifeless sword art. The terrifying sword art of Sword Sect descended once more. Lifeless. That slash seemed like it wanted to sever all life inside and outside the fireball. Su Zimo narrowed his gaze and was tense. At that moment, he was no longer the one fighting. Instead, Hakka Dojin was using an essence spirit to make use of his body to fight against the 3 Tao Lords. Buzz! Suddenly, the 4 imprints on Su Zimo's left wrist and the Mingwang prayer beads shone with a bedazzling light. The power of the 4 dermic seals seemed to have fused into one and an illusory shadow seemed to have appeared behind Su Zimo. It assumed a lotus position with a dignified expression. There seemed to be endless mysterious runes etched on its body. Sanskrit sounded. Clang! The sword beam struck the illusory shadow with an ear-piercing sound. The illusory shadow swayed for a moment and gradually dissipated. The slash that could extinguish life had returned empty-handed as well. This was the first time Tao Lord Immortal's sword did not bleed after releasing the lifeless sword art. Although Hakka Dojin did not say anything, Su Zimo could sense that the current situation had exceeded Hakka Dojin's initial expectations. They did not manage to break through Tao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift's obstruction right away and were stuck in a stalemate instead. The longer this dragged on, the greater the changes would be. Be it against the 6 hegemons or the 3 Tao Lords, they were the weakest of the 3. They couldn't withstand any sudden changes. Things aren't looking good. Prepare to retreat. Hakka Dojin's voice sounded, filled with indignation and difficulty. The 3 Tao Lords were more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. Although the heaven-slaying sword art was right before him, he could only return empty-handed. However, Hakka Dojin had no choice but to make that decision. If he was alone, he might have been able to risk his life. However, he had Su Zimo by his side, he could not allow Su Zimo to die here. Most importantly, he had lost his physical body and was only left with his essence spirit. As such, the methods he could use were extremely limited and he could not release many powerful dermic arts. If he continued to linger, he would only harm Su Zimo. Chapter 884. Su Zimo had a calm expression. Although this battle did not have much to do with him, he was a bystander and could see some opportunities in the situation. Because the demons were suppressed, Tao Lord Cloud Rain and the other 2 were only targeting him. If he could remove the seals on the demons, the first thing the 6 overlords and fiend demons would deal with after they escaped would not be him. It would be Tao Lord Cloud Rain and the other 2. Suddenly, Su Zimo raised his head and looked at the ancient beast hide floating not far away with a divine glint in his eyes. You want to? Hakka Dojin noticed Su Zimo's gaze and realized something as well, saying hurriedly. Although the demon sealing diagram is damaged, its remnant might is still present and can suppress all demons. The bloodline in your body does not belong to the human race. If you touch that treasure, you'll definitely be injured. Right now, Su Zimo's consciousness was filled with the black-haired essence spirit and the demon sealing diagram did not exert any suppression on him. However, if he reached out and touched it with his flesh and blood, the demon sealing diagram would definitely sense the aura of his bloodline and burst forth with power to suppress him. Suppress all demons? Su Zimo murmured softly, not necessarily. Before he finished his sentence, Su Zimo had already soared into the air and charged towards the demon sealing diagram in midair. Initially, Tao Lord Immortal's sword was worried that something would happen when he saw a cultivator of unknown origins barge into the battlefield. However, when he saw that, Tao Lord Immortal's sword sneered and was relieved instead. Although the demon sealing diagram did not have much lethality against cultivators, it was a treasure that he refined after all and had his spirit consciousness imprint on it. It was impossible for this person to seize control of the demon sealing diagram within a short period of time. Tao Lord Immortal's sword retracted his gaze and glared at the ball of light before him before slashing down once more. Boom! The ball of light trembled and its light dimmed significantly, the sword chi was no longer as frightening as before. Tao Lord Immortal's sword took a step forward and attempted to barge into the ball of light. However, before he could approach it, his clothes were already torn by the sword chi. Tao Lord Immortal's sword frowned. Just a little bit more. On the other side, Su Zimo had already arrived beside the demon sealing diagram. Without hesitation, he extended his right hand and grabbed the tattered beast hide in midair. Although the demon sealing diagram was incomplete, it still exuded an ancient and terrifying aura. Just as Su Zimo grasped the demon sealing diagram in his palm, the demon sealing diagram suddenly erupted with an extremely terrifying power. Enveloped by this power, Su Zimo's blood seemed to have frozen and stopped circulating. A massive pressure came crashing down on him. His tendons and bones rang in unison, seemingly unable to bear the burden. Su Zimo finally understood how the 6 overlords and the many fiendish demons felt when facing the demon sealing diagram. It was as if his blood vessels had been sealed by an invisible force. When the power of the demon sealing diagram erupted, Su Zimo's right hand bore the brunt of it. It was also the right hand that possessed the divine phoenix bone. Whoosh! A crimson flame rose into the air. Su Zimo's right hand was about to transform into the claw of the divine phoenix. However, right then, as though it sensed the aura of the divine phoenix bone, the demon sealing diagram shuddered and the power it released dissipated instantly. No matter how strong the demon sealing diagram was and how it could suppress thousands of demons, it could not suppress the divine phoenix. The divine phoenix was an existence equivalent to a god. Su Zimo gripped the demon sealing diagram tightly and the flames released by the divine phoenix bone in his right hand burned, wiping away Tao Lord Immortal Sword's spirit consciousness imprint on the demon sealing diagram. Su Zimo retracted his palm and touched his storage bag. The demon sealing diagram had already vanished and was put away by him. Su Zimo's heart thumped wildly. That was a treasure. If he was destined to not be able to obtain the heaven-slaying sword art, this trip would not have been wasted if he could obtain the demon sealing diagram. The entire process took a long time to describe, but in reality, it happened in the blink of an eye. The demons merely saw Su Zimo charge into midair and stuff the demon sealing diagram into his storage bag. The demon sealing diagram resisted slightly and merely struggled for a moment before it was snatched away. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's expression changed. He had lost his sense of the demon sealing diagram. Damn it! Tao Lord Immortal Sword cursed internally. Roar! Groar! Without the suppression of the demon sealing diagram, the situation on the battlefield reversed and a series of earth-shaking roars filled with endless rage could be heard instantly. You guys have a death wish. The old ape's eyes widened with a chilling killing intent. He swung imminent with both arms and strode forward, smashing down viciously, engulfing Tao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift within. The other 5 overlords and many high-level fiend demons attacked one after another as well. As Su Zimo had expected, fiend demons from Thousand Demon Valley were dying continuously from the start of the fight and the demons hated the 3 Tao Lords to the core. Furthermore, the demons had just been suppressed by the demon sealing diagram and were filled with pent-up anger. One could imagine how many of them would have died just now that the demon sealing diagram was hanging high in the air and if not for Su Zimo's sudden appearance to fight against the 3 Tao Lords. Would the 6 overlords be spared? At the thought of it, Su Zimo could be considered as having saved them. Furthermore, all the demons witnessed how Su Zimo snatched the demon sealing diagram. The demon sealing diagram seemed to want to suppress this person as well. There was a high chance that this person was a demon. With that thought, the demons attacked one after another. However, they were only targeting Tao Lord Cloud Rain and the other 2, none of them attacked Su Zimo. Su Zimo seized the opportunity to break free from the chaos and charged towards the gigantic ball of light not far away in a flash. He arrived before it before long. It's done. At this point, he was already halfway to success. Right now, the only one standing in front of him was Tao Lord Immortal Sword. Leave it to me. Haka Adojin's voice sounded with confidence. I don't care if you're a human or a demon. Die. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's gaze shifted with a sinister killing intent. He conjured hand seals and was about to release the lifeless sword art once more. All of a sudden, an extremely terrifying spirit consciousness fluctuation burst forth from Su Zimo's left wrist. A scarlet light burst forth and transformed into a soaring serpent that was as thick as an arm in midair. Burning with raging flames, it lunged towards Tao Lord Immortal Sword. Essence Spirit Secret Skill. Haka Adojin lost his body and could not release most of his dermic arts. However, he could still release a trump card. Essence Spirit Secret Skill. Just now, he did not release his Essence Spirit Secret Skill against the 3 Tao Lords because it could only target a single person. Even if he could force back one of the 3 Tao Lords, he would still have to deal with the other 2. But things were different now. As long as he could force Tao Lord Immortal Sword back, the Heaven-Slaying Sword art would be within his reach. The Soaring Serpent Flame God was the Essence Spirit Secret Skill that Hakka Dojin cultivated in the past and was infamous in the cultivation world. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's expression froze. The sword art in his hands had no choice but to dissipate the moment it was formed. The lifeless sword art was a dermic art and could not defend against Essence Spirit Secret Skills. If he wanted to defend against Essence Spirit Secret Skills, he could only rely on the power of his Spirit Consciousness or Essence Spirit Dermic weapons. If he released the lifeless sword art, although he could kill the person before him, he would be destroyed by the Soaring Serpent Flame God and lose the chance to obtain the Heaven-Slaying Sword art forever. Tao Lord Immortal Sword could not afford to lose. Helpless, Tao Lord Immortal Sword could only channel his spirit consciousness and conjure an Essence Spirit Secret Skill. His glabella shone and a cold sword shot out. Chapter 885. The sword formed from spirit consciousness was the Essence Spirit Secret Skill of Sword Sect, God-Slaying Sword. At its peak, it could destroy the other party's essence spirit with a single slash. Legend has it that in the ancient era, in order to escape the fate of being enslaved, the human race rose and fought against the 100 races led by the primordial 9 races. The Sword Emperor once wielded this Essence Spirit Secret Skill and roamed unhindered. With the God-Slaying Sword alone, he killed countless experts of the 100 races and shocked the world. The 100 races were terrified and no one dared to face it head-on. Right now, although the one fighting Tao Lord Immortal Sword was Hakka Dojin and Su Zimo was not involved, he could still sense an extremely sharp aura surging towards him. The God-Slaying Sword did not slash his body at all. However, his essence spirit felt a piercing pain. In his consciousness, Qinglian spun slowly and layers of lotus petals bloomed with a resplendent glow. On the lotus platform, 45 lotus seeds spewed out and surrounded the black-haired essence spirit, protecting it in the middle and defending against much of the sharpness of the God-Slaying Sword. The piercing pain disappeared and the black-haired essence spirit returned to normal. In the blink of an eye, the soaring serpent released by Hakka Dojin in midair burned with raging flames and collided with the incoming sword. The clash of spirit consciousnesses was silent. However, the void where the 2 spirit consciousnesses collided was already distorted with a shuddering power. Su Zimo waited intently, prepared to deal with any possible changes. This was a fight between essence spirits that was extremely dangerous. Furthermore, they were facing the top Dharma characteristic expert of Tianhuang mainland, the number 1 of the previous Dharma characteristic ranking. The sword and soaring serpent intertwined in midair. When the sword slashed down, countless scarlet scales were scraped off the soaring serpent's body. At the same time, the soaring serpent bit back on the sword and its light dimmed significantly. The 2 spirit consciousnesses fought in midair and it was difficult to determine a victor. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's expression darkened. He had not expected that the cultivator who suddenly barged into the battlefield would be so troublesome. Of course, he had not lost yet. The seal on the ball of light was still there. The sword chi on it was so sharp that even he didn't dare to barge in. The other Transcendence Realm experts didn't dare to approach it either. Meanwhile, as the 2 divine senses were still fighting in the air, Hakka Dojin's voice could be heard once again. Zimo, enter the cauldron. Smash your way in. This was a step in their plan. Su Zimo didn't hesitate. His forehead flashed, and a bronze square cauldron appeared. His body shrank, and he jumped into the cauldron, slamming it into the ball of light. When he saw that, Tao Lord Immortal Sword sneered. The sword chi emitted by the ball of light was so sharp that even Khanate Tao Lord Dermic weapons might not be able to withstand it, let alone this cracked bronze tripod. Ding ding dang dang. Sensing that something was approaching, the ball of light emitted a series of sword chi that collided with the bronze square cauldron, causing a series of metallic clangs to ring out. However, the sword energy did not penetrate the bronze square cauldron. Very quickly, the bronze square cauldron crashed into the ball of light and disappeared before everyone's eyes. The demons were in an uproar. Nobody expected that such a turn of events would occur at this point of the battle. The strangest thing was that neither Thousand Demon Valley nor the three Tao Lords knew who the intruder was. In fact, they did not even know if the intruder was a cultivator or a demon. It made sense to say that he was a cultivator. After all, this person could roam freely and calmly under the cover of the demon ceiling diagram. It made sense to say that he was a fiend demon as well. After this person appeared, he fought against the three Tao Lords and even snatched away the demon ceiling diagram, saving the demons. Tao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift frowned. In their flustered state, they were nearly killed by the 6 overlords. Tao Lord Immortal Sword's expression was cold as he said in a deep voice, "Fellow Taoists, hold on for a moment longer. Leave this to me. Don't worry, there's so many of us here. This person won't be able to escape." In Tao Lord Immortal Sword's opinion, even if Su Zimo entered the ball of light, he wouldn't be able to obtain the heaven-slaying sword art. The ball of light was gigantic and was enveloped by endless sword chi from the inside out. Su Zimo hid in the tripod and did not dare to show himself. He was like a blind man who was bumping around inside. There was no way he could find the heaven-slaying sword art. Tao Lord Immortal Sword composed himself and his eyes shone coldly. He conjured hand seals once more and conjured a gigantic sword that slashed down viciously at the ball of light. "I've got to destroy the seal as soon as possible," Tao Lord Immortal Sword lamented internally. Although he was not worried that Su Zimo would find the heaven-slaying sword art, he still felt uneasy, as though he had a premonition that an even greater change was about to happen. The moment the bronze square tripod collided with the ball of light, Su Zimo knew that the heaven-slaying sword art was within his reach. Tao Lord Immortal Sword was right. Under normal circumstances, if he hid in the bronze square tripod and did not dare to show himself, it was equivalent to closing his eyes. In this endless sea of sword chi, it was impossible for him to find the heaven-slaying sword art. The moment his spirit consciousness was released, it would be sliced into pieces. However, in reality, Su Zimo had already used his illumination dragon eye to see the location of the heaven-slaying sword art before he entered the ball of light. This was something that none of the Transcendence Realm experts present could do. Therefore, even though he was hiding in the bronze square tripod, Su Zimo could still speed in the direction of the heaven-slaying sword art based on his memory. Cling! Clang! The sound of sword chi colliding against the walls of the tripod echoed continuously in an ear-piercing manner. Su Zimo was secretly alarmed. If not for the bronze square tripod, his body would have been pierced by the countless sword chi long ago. Although the bronze square tripod was already shattered beyond recognition, it had helped him tide through danger several times ever since he obtained it. "We should be arriving soon." Right then, Haka Dojin's voice sounded. "How did you know, Senior?" Su Zimo could not help but ask curiously. He had seen the location of the heaven-slaying sword art but Haka Dojin had not. Haka Dojin said, "Listen carefully. The sword chi in the surroundings is clearly weakening. In other words, we're about to approach the ancient sword art." Su Zimo listened intently. Indeed, the sounds of sword chi colliding against the walls of the tripod turned softer and softer. Before long, it was silent outside the tripod walls. Su Zimo guessed that they were about to reach the location of the heaven-slaying sword art and released his spirit consciousness to check. Indeed, the surroundings were silent without any sword chi. There was only a slightly withered ancient scroll that hovered in midair. Su Zimo put away the bronze square tripod and surveyed his surroundings, clicking his tongue in wonder. 10 feet away from the ancient scroll, sword chi surged like an ocean and rampaged with a chilling killing intent, as though it wanted to destroy the world. However, it was peaceful within 10 feet of the ancient scroll without any killing intent. The two phenomenons formed a stark contrast. Su Zimo took a few steps forward and looked at the ancient scroll that was within his reach, feeling that it was surreal. If he had not seen it personally, he would not have believed that the ancient scroll before him was one of the three legendary sword arts. The ancient scroll was extremely ordinary and was only slightly yellow. It was no different from the other books that he read when he studied hard in Pingyang town. Su Zimo reached out and gripped the ancient scroll in his hands. Chapter 886. Boom! Another sword slashed down and the ball of light vibrated. Dao Lord Immortal Sword's eyes lit up as he channeled his blood chi and dermic powers, prepared to charge in and snatch the heaven-slaying sword art. Right then, suddenly, the gigantic ball of light in midair dimmed and the sword chi dissipated as well. In the blink of an eye, it vanished without a trace. The ball of light was gone. Under everyone's watchful eyes, the ball of light suddenly dispersed and then disappeared. The stars that were initially spiraling chaotically in the firmaments gradually faded as well. Everyone on the battlefield was stunned. Even the six overlords, Dao Lord Cloud Rain, Fairy Snowdrift, and the others who were initially locked in battle stopped momentarily and looked over with stunned expressions. Dao Lord Cloud Rain and Fairy Snowdrift looked towards Dao Lord Immortal Sword instinctively. After all, Dao Lord Immortal Sword was the one who struck the ball of light and caused it to vanish. Could Dao Lord Immortal Sword have succeeded? However, at that moment, Dao Lord Immortal Sword's expression was extremely grim. Of course, he knew that the disappearance of the ball of light had nothing to do with his slash. There was only a single possibility for the disappearance of the ball of light. Someone had already taken away the heaven-slaying sword art and the ball of sword chi had vanished as well. Someone had taken away the heaven-slaying sword art right in front of him and many Dharma characteristic experts. Was it the person who controlled the bronze tripod? However, how was that possible? Even if that person could find the heaven-slaying sword art in the endless sea of sword chi, how could he have vanished all of a sudden? A concealment technique. A thought flashed through Dao Lord Immortal Sword's mind. That person must have cultivated some sort of concealment technique. In the cultivation world, some sects had unique concealment techniques, and Hidden Death sect, one of the 7 fiends sects, was the most proficient in that. In fact, when those concealment techniques were cultivated to their limits, they could even be cultivated into divine powers, invisibility. Legend has it that above invisibility was the greater invisibility technique. It was a peerless divine power that could even hide from the detection of Mahayana patriarchs and was unpredictable. In the world of the demon race, there were fiend demons who were proficient in concealment as well. Some high-level fiend demons had innate divine powers of concealment. Although the concealment technique was strange and unfathomable, it also had a flaw, and that was that it couldn't be moved too quickly. Otherwise, it would definitely reveal a flaw and expose its whereabouts. In other words, the person who took away the heaven-slaying sword art was still nearby. At that thought, Dao Lord Immortal Sword released his massive spirit consciousness and scanned the surroundings continuously, trying to find any clues. Right at this moment, a change occurred. Suddenly, a dark crack tore open in the skies, emitting a frightening might. Silence reigned and all the demons were silent out of fear. The expressions of the 6 overlords changed drastically. Under the shroud of this aura, their bodies trembled slightly. The faces of the 3 Dao Lords turned ashen. They didn't move at all, their faces ashen. This was the aura of a greater demon. Great demons were equivalent to conjoint body mighty figures of the human race. The commotion here eventually alarmed the great demons of the myriad demon valley. Every single move of a greater demon could shake the world. In the face of a greater demon, the 6 overlords and 3 Dao Lords were nothing more than ants that could be killed with ease. From the crack in the sky, 2 rays of light suddenly flashed and shone on this area. It was like a pair of cold eyes that were patrolling back and forth. A grand demon was using his godly methods to investigate this place. Crack. On the other side, another crack appeared in the skies with a dark light shining within. Another greater demon had appeared. Swoosh. Another enormous and terrifying divine sense descended at this moment. Against this spirit consciousness, the Dharma characteristic experts present were like infants that could be seen through from head to toe, as though there were no secrets to speak of. It was another greater demon. 3 greater demons appeared one after another. It was not only Tao Lord Immortal Sword, even the 3 greater demons thought of the same possibility. The person who took away the heaven-slaying sword art should have used some sort of concealment technique and was still nearby. However, after a while, the 3 greater demons found nothing. Tao Lord Immortal Sword frowned. He had fought against that person before, and that person's cultivation realm was at the Dharma characteristic realm at most. There was no way a concealment technique cultivated by a Dharma characteristic expert could escape the detection of a greater demon. In other words, that person was not hiding nearby using a concealment technique and might have already left. Tao Lord Immortal Sword thought of another guess. Suddenly, he recalled that just now, the moment the ball of light vanished, a crack seemed to have appeared in the void where it was and closed quickly. That crack, Tao Lord Immortal Sword murmured softly, could it be, shift? Talisman. Right then, a deep rumble sounded from above the firmaments. It was bone-chilling and carried endless fury. It was the same as Tao Lord Immortal Sword's thoughts. The greater demon came to the same conclusion as well. Heaven and earth trembled when a greater demon was enraged. The 3 Tao Lords exchanged glances, their faces grim as they shook their heads. The 3 of them would most likely be the first to suffer under the wrath of a greater demon. In a forest 5,000 kilometers away, 2 spirit demons were fighting and were covered in injuries. All of a sudden, beside the 2 spirit demons, a strange crack appeared in the void. The 2 spirit demons could not dodge in time and were pulled in by the crack. A figure jumped out from within with sweat on his forehead and panting slightly. That figure was Su Zimo, who had just obtained the heaven-slaying sword art. Tao Lord Immortal Sword was right. The reason why Su Zimo was able to escape in front of everyone was because of the minor transference talisman. Tearing the minor transference talisman could teleport a cultivator 5,000 kilometers away at will. The moment Su Zimo appeared in the forest, he sensed a shuddering aura at the end of the firmaments. What sort of aura was so frightening? A greater demon has appeared. While Su Zimo was still in a daze, the Hakka Dojin's voice sounded with a hint of anxiety. Hurry, hurry. Return to your demon form and change your appearance. Adjust your aura and calm down. Don't reveal any flaws. Su Zimo did not have time to think. The black-haired essence spirit withdrew from his consciousness and the scarlet-haired essence spirit sat in the middle. In the blink of an eye, his black hair turned scarlet like blood. The muscles on his face squirmed and he returned to his original appearance before long. He had delicate features and changed into a green robe, tossing the ancient scroll in his hands into his storage bag. However, right after, Su Zimo was stunned. The heaven-slaying sword art could not be placed into his storage bag. What's going on? Su Zimo was stunned. This was the first time he had encountered such a situation. The Hakka Dojin said, the heaven-slaying sword art is one of the 3 ancient sword arts and its killing intent is too strong. Although it isn't revealed, your storage bag won't be able to withstand it. It could not even fit into his storage bag. Keep it in your embrace first, don't be nervous. The Hakka Dojin said in a deep voice, no one has seen the heaven-slaying sword art before. Even if a greater demon discovers it, he won't be able to recognize it. Su Zimo nodded and kept the heaven-slaying sword art. Taking a deep breath, he placed his hands behind his back and strode forward. The moment he was done, an extremely terrifying spirit consciousness spread over and enveloped the forest rapidly, including Su Zimo. Immediately after, another 2 equally terrifying spirit consciousnesses spread over and descended upon this place. The greater demon was like a shadow and had already caught up. Chapter 887. Su-Zimo had not expected the three grand demons to arrive here so quickly. However, on second thought, he realized that there would definitely be traces of auras left behind after he tore the minor transference talisman. Given the methods of the grand demons, it was only logical that they would be able to follow the remnant auras here. Previously, after he and Lin Xuanji escaped from the Dragon Bone Valley, a divine dragon came knocking on their door. Thankfully, the mysterious old man of Enigma Palace attacked, or he would have died a long time ago. It was normal for the grand demon's spirit consciousnesses to catch up at such a fast speed. The Jinying Jinjuan's spirit consciousness had a range of at least 5 kilometers and 50 kilometers at its peak. The spirit consciousness of void reversions had a range of at least 50 kilometers. The Dharma Daojuan's spirit consciousness had a range of at least 500 kilometers. As for conjoint body mighty figures, the grand demons of the demon race, their spirit consciousnesses had a range of at least 5,000 kilometers. In other words, although Su-Zimo tore the minor transference talisman and teleported 5,000 kilometers away, the grand demons could reach him instantly with their spirit consciousnesses. Su-Zimo was long prepared and advanced through the forest with a calm expression. When he sensed the descent of the grand demon's spirit consciousnesses, he pretended to be terrified and stopped in his tracks, silent as a cicada in winter, as though he was scared out of his wits. The fear in his eyes was not entirely an act. Su-Zimo knew very well that if any of the three grand demons discovered that he was the one who stole the heaven-slaying sword art, he would definitely die. The three spirit consciousnesses scanned the forest repeatedly without dissipating. The atmosphere in the forest became extremely oppressive, silent and sinister. In fact, even the chirping of cicadas had disappeared. Su-Zimo did not even dare to breathe heavily. If not for Haka-Dojin's warning, he would have been caught right away. At that moment, Haka-Dojin went silent as well. After the grand demon's spirit consciousnesses descended, he did not say anything else. His essence spirit hid in the depths of the Mingwang prayer beads and concealed his aura. Haka-Dojin understood the methods and abilities of the grand demons. Even if his aura leaked out, the grand demons would be able to sense it, let alone send voice transmissions with spirit consciousnesses. The three spirit consciousnesses landed on Su-Zimo as well and scanned him, but to no avail. The current Su-Zimo had a head of scarlet hair and wore green robes. He looked refined and handsome, completely different from how he just now when he stole the heaven-slaying sword art. If one had to point out a similarity, it would be that both of them were in human form. However, there were many fiend demons in human form in this forest and there was nothing special about Su-Zimo. After a long time, the three terrifying divine senses dispersed one after another, disappearing without a trace. Heaving a sigh of relief, Su-Zimo continued forward at a steady pace. Although Su-Zimo was grand demons, Su-Zimo's was grand demons's. Grand Su did not say. A strange look flashed through the depths of Su-Zimo's eyes. On the surface, it seemed like the three grand demons had already left. However, Su-Zimo's spirit perception could still sense the shuddering of their presence. Not far away, a figure soared into the air and sped into the distance, seemingly in a hurry. The moment the figure moved, it was blasted into a blood mist by a burst of power. Both its essence spirit and corpse were destroyed without a corpse. The mid-level fiend demon's storage bag was pierced and his treasures were scattered all over the ground. The three frightening spirit consciousnesses returned and descended instantly. True enough. The three grand demons merely pretended to leave, but they were still lingering nearby, spying in the dark. Just now, the mid-level fiend demon that died an innocent death. However, just now, if Su-Zimo had any interaction with Haka-Dojin, he would be discovered by the three grand demons right away and would not be able to escape death. Although those dozens of breaths seemed short, it was extremely dangerous. Su-Zimo and Haka-Dojin were fighting against the three grand demons. The spirit consciousnesses of the three grand demons scanned the forest once more and retreated reluctantly after finding nothing. That feeling of fear and trepidation also disappeared along with it. It's fine now. Haka-Dojin heaved a sigh of relief and sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness. The three of them won't turn back, right? Suzumo was still worried. They won't, Haka-Dojin said. Actually, the three grand demons can't be certain that you're in this region either. After all, while the grand demons can deduce that you used a transference talisman, they can't determine if you used a major or major transference talisman. Suzumo nodded to himself. The difference in location between major and minor transference talismans was worlds apart. Suzumo looked in the direction they came from. With the appearance of the grand demons, the three Tao lords have probably died after entering Thousand Demon Valley to fight for treasures. The combat strength of the three Tao lords is so terrifying, and they're also three titular disciples with noble statuses. To think that a single miscalculation would cause them to end up buried in the demon region. Suzumo lamented internally. Actually, he was still puzzled. However, he could not pinpoint the specifics and felt that something was amiss. Hee. Right then, as though he could read Suzumo's mind, Haka-Dojin chuckled strangely. Haka-Dojin asked, "Do you feel that the three Tao lords died a little too easily despite their reputations?" Suzumo pondered for a moment and nodded. That's indeed the feeling. Normally speaking, the three Tao lords are the disciples with the highest status in their respective sections. Since they chose to enter a dangerous place like Thousand Demon Valley, why aren't there any mighty figures protecting them in secret? Furthermore, the three Tao lords. Suzumo hesitated and did not continue. Haka-Dojin chuckled and continued, "Furthermore, the methods and treasures of the three Tao lords seem to be lacking." "That's right, that's the feeling," Suzumo nodded. "That's because the three Tao lords you saw were merely clones that they cultivated." Haka-Dojin's indifferent statement was earth-shattering. Suzumo was stunned on the spot with his mouth agape. His eyes were filled with disbelief, and a single thought echoed through his mind. The three Tao lords with torrential combat strength that fought the six overlords against the demons were merely clones. If their clones were already so terrifying, what sort of combat strength and methods did the true bodies of the three Tao lords possess? It was no wonder why Tao Lord Cloud Rain, a titular disciple who was second on the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago, only possessed a single perfect Tao Lord Dharmic weapon. As for Fairy Snowdrift, she did not summon her Dharmic weapon the entire time. However, on second thought, the fact that Tao Lord Cloud Rain and Tao Lord Immortal Sword were able to equip their clones with perfect Tao Lord Dharmic weapons and treasures such as the Demon Sealing Diagram was proof of their wealth. "Senior, how did you tell?" Suzumo could not help but ask. Haka-Dojin did not answer and asked instead, "Do you know why our cultivation realm is known as the Dharma characteristic realm?" Suzumo blurted out, "Naturally, it's because at this realm, cultivators can conjure a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic with unparalleled combat strength. It's considered as the strongest technique of Dharma characteristic experts and can take on the innate divine powers of high-level fiend demons head-on." Suddenly, Suzumo paused in silence. He recalled that the three Tao lords had not released their heaven and earth Dharma characteristics right from the beginning. Chapter 888. Haka-Dojin said, "Their clones seem no different from their true bodies and can release Dharmic arts, secret skills and control Dharmic weapons. However, in reality, there's only a pure spirit consciousness left in their clones. Without a true essence spirit, they can't control their heaven and earth Dharma characteristics." Suzumo's heart skipped a beat and he could not recover for a long time. Without a heaven and earth Dharma characteristic, they can fight against demons and even suppress the six overlords with just a single clone. The three Tao lords truly live up to their reputation. Upon hearing Suzumo's praise, Haka-Dojin seemed to be indifferent. Don't forget that before the three of them arrived, the six overlords had just fought and their stamina was more than half depleted and their combat strength was reduced. Furthermore, they returned empty-handed after entering Thousand Demon Valley and their three clones were destroyed. It can be said that they're severely injured. do you think it's easy to cultivate a fully formed doppelganger? Haka Adojin said, clone techniques as such are rare to begin with. Even if they do, they won't be able to condense them without 1,000 years of tough cultivation. In that case, the 3 Tao lords suffered a huge loss, Su Zimo murmured softly. Haka Adojin nodded. Tao Lord Immortal Sword suffered the most losses and could be said to have lost everything. Not only did he lose the demon sealing diagram and his clone, he even promised Yunyu and Yunyu immense benefits. This grudge has been settled. However, you don't have to be afraid. Firstly, he doesn't know who stole the heaven-slaying sword art. Secondly, it doesn't matter even if he knows. An ancient secret skill like that is ownerless and anyone can snatch it. At the same time. Middle Continent, Sword Sect, Immortal Sword Tao Residence. Damn it! A hysterical roar sounded from the Tao residence, attracting the attention of many Sword Sect cultivators nearby. What's wrong with Senior Brother Immortal Sword? I'm not sure. A few days ago, 2 titular disciples entered seclusion with Senior Brother Immortal Sword in his cave abode and haven't come out since. Senior Brother Immortal Sword's friends are also paragons and monster incarnates of Tianhuang mainland. How enviable. Strange, Senior Brother Immortal Sword has always been calm and steady. Why would he lose his composure like this? Just as everyone was discussing, a sword light rippled over from afar like autumn water. Everyone's expression changed. Senior Sister Qin. Greetings, Senior Sister Qin. Many swordsmen hurriedly bowed in greeting. Their eyes flickered as if they were afraid of the newcomer. The person who came was dressed in a white dress. Her sleeves fluttered in the wind, and her black hair brushed against her face. She carried a long sword on her back, and she looked like a fairy who had descended to the mortal world. This Senior Sister Qin didn't look old and was in the prime of her life. Her skin was like cream, her eyes were like water, and her 2 sword-like eyebrows were slightly raised, revealing a trace of heroic spirit. Senior Sister Qin glanced at them and frowned slightly. She looked angry and said sternly, "What nonsense are you spouting here instead of cultivating? Senior Brother Immortal Sword is not someone you can criticize." Yes, yes, yes. Senior Sister Qin is right. We know we were wrong. We'll go cultivate diligently now. No one dared to raise their heads. They hurriedly admitted their mistakes, bowed, and left. When they were far away, everyone looked around. When they realized that there was no one around, they began to gossip again. What's the relationship between Senior Sister Qin and Senior Brother Immortal Sword? Why does she keep protecting him? I heard that the 2 of them joined the sect at the same time and cultivated together. They can be considered childhood sweethearts. Furthermore, Senior Brother Immortal Sword is so outstanding. Let alone Senior Sister Qin, even the other women in our sect and fairies of Tianhuang mainland would fall for him. That's right. I heard that Fairy Snowdrift is accompanying Senior Brother Immortal Sword in his seclusion this time round. On the other side, Senior Sister Qin had already arrived before a Tao residence with a hesitant expression, as though she wanted to knock on the door but was in a dilemma. A moment later, Senior Sister Qin finally made up her mind and knocked on the door gently, asking gently, "Senior Brother Chen, are you all right?" Tao Lord Immortal Sword's surname was Chen. However, he had been the titular disciple of Sword Sect for more than 1,000 years. Apart from some people who joined the sect earlier, no one else knew about it. The cave abode was silent. Senior Sister Qin waited for a moment and revealed a disappointed expression. Just as she was about to turn and leave, a voice sounded from the cave abode. "Oh, it's Pianran. I'm fine. Sorry to have worried you," Tao Lord Immortal Sword's voice sounded, as though he had regained his composure. However, Qin Pianran could vaguely hear a hint of coldness in his voice. After hesitating for a long time, Qin Pianran asked again, "Senior Brother Chen, I heard that Fairy Snowdrift is in your residence. Is that true, Pianran? There's nothing else. You can head back." Tao Lord Immortal Sword's voice sounded and interrupted Qin Pianran with a clear hint of coldness. Qin Pianran bit his red lips gently and stomped his feet with reddened eyes before turning to leave. The cave abode was dimly lit and 3 figures could be vaguely seen. Tao Lord Cloud Rain curled his lips slightly and swept his gaze across Tao Lord Immortal Sword and Fairy Snowdrift. He said leisurely with a hint of playfulness. To think that Brother Immortal Sword is a sentimental person. Tao Lord Immortal Sword had a calm expression and said indifferently, Pianran and I are merely junior sisters from the same sect. There's nothing between us. Snowdrift, don't think too much. Fairy Snowflake remained silent. A moment later, she changed the topic and asked, can the 2 of you tell what the person who snatched the treasure is up to? I don't know, Tao Lord Cloud Rain pouted. That person did not reveal any signature techniques or dermic arts. I can't tell his background. Fairy Snowdrift nodded as well. Not only could she not tell the background of that person, she did not even know if he was a human or demon. However, suddenly, Tao Lord Cloud Rain seemed to have thought of something and hesitated. Could it be that you have some reservations, Brother Cloud Rain? Tao Lord Immortal Sword frowned slightly. That's not it, Tao Lord Cloud Rain chuckled. Actually, that person's essence spirit secret skill reminded me of an old friend. However, that old friend is a Tao Lord from 5,000 years ago and has long fallen. Who? Tao Lord Immortal Sword asked. Tao Lord Cloud Rain said faintly, that person's Tao title is Extreme Fire. Haka Adojin. That name sounds familiar. I think I've seen him somewhere before. Fairy Snowdrift frowned in deep thought. Tao Lord Cloud Rain said slowly, I was number 2 on the Dharma characteristic ranking 5,000 years ago and Haka Adojin was number 1. It's him. Tao Lord Immortal Sword and Fairy Snowdrift were shocked. Back then, Haka Adojin was extremely famous in the cultivation world and came from 100 Refinement sect. Not only was he a top weapon refinement grandmaster, his combat strength could even suppress those of the same generation. He was number 1 on the Dharma characteristic ranking and was known as the number 1 fire controller in the past 10,000 years. His name shook the world. Fairy Snowdrift shook her head. It can't be him. He has been missing for 5,000 years and should have died long ago. Furthermore, if he had appeared, given his strength, how could he have been entangled with our clones for so long? Tao Lord Cloud Rain shrugged. I know that it can't be him as well. That's why I said it casually. Tao Lord Immortal Sword soared into the air with a face filled with killing intent. His gaze was cold as he said, I don't care who that person is. If I find out his identity, I'll kill him even if I have to go to the ends of the world or Acheron. I'm going to make him regret everything he did in Thousand Demon Valley. Tao Lord Cloud Rain narrowed his eyes and asked, Immortal Sword, you're still unwilling to tell us what's in that ball of light? It's a secret of the sect. Sorry, Tao Lord Immortal Sword rejected him casually. Chapter 889. A month later. The commotion caused by the Thousand Demon meet had gradually calmed down. During this period of time, the most discussed topic among the demons was not the cultivation of the Blood Sea, but the shocking battle caused by the appearance of the stars in daytime. The fiend demons that were fortunate enough to witness that battle were extremely excited and felt proud upon returning to their races. After all, that was a battle between top Dharma characteristic experts of the demon race and human cultivators. Eventually, even the grand demons of Thousand Demon Valley were alerted. Not everyone had the chance to experience something like that. Most of the fiend demons in Thousand Demon Valley might not even get to see a grand demon in their entire lives. Let alone witnessing a grand demon in action personally. For the demons, an experience as such was an irreplaceable fortune. Some of the fiend demons could make use of this opportunity to comprehend and advance their cultivation. It was naturally another opportunity. Howling Moon Mountain. Ever since the Thousand Demon meet, a piece of news had spread. One of the 5 territorial lords of Howling Moon Mountain was from the same race as the overlord of Ape Chatter Ridge and was highly valued. Naturally, the status of Howling Moon Mountain rose as well. Some of the demon regions in the vicinity initially had designs on Howling Moon Mountain, but they lost interest later on. After Monkey and the others returned to Howling Moon Mountain, there was naturally a huge commotion as the demons drank merrily all night. Night fell. In a drunken stupor, the spirit tiger hugged Monkey's shoulders and mumbled nonsense. He talked about how he and Ching Ching would stay on this mountain in the future and have a bunch of children. Ching Ching glared at Linghu. However, she did not get angry when she saw how drunk he was. Monkey and Solitary Cloud drank with big bowls. Both of them were open and uninhibited, not restrained at all. Little Fox held a wine cup with both hands and sipped occasionally with a hint of worry in her eyes. "Are you still worried about first?" Ching Ching was meticulous and could naturally tell that Little Fox was distracted. She consoled, "Don't worry, Little Fox. First has many tricks up his sleeves. Didn't he escape already? Nothing will happen to him." "Yes," Little Fox nodded and sighed gently. "But that's a grand demon. Can young master escape from the pursuit of a grand demon?" Right then, a voice sounded in the minds of the 5 of them. "Don't make a fuss about coming to my cave abode." Little Fox raised her head and her worry turned into joy as she could not help but laugh. "Yes, big brother." Linghu's entire body quivered as he sobered up. The drunkenness in his eyes had already disappeared. Without hesitation, the monkey and the other 4 moved and arrived at Su Zimo's cave abode at the peak of the mountain. Before anyone could knock on the door to the abode opened automatically. The 5 of them weren't surprised at all and entered in a single file. Even though the cave abode was dimly lit, it did not affect Monkey and the other 4. In front of them was a green figure with shoulder-length scarlet hair. He had delicate features and was smiling at the crowd. It was Su Zimo. Unknowingly, Su Zimo had already snuck into this place without anyone noticing. "Young master." The little fox called out softly and pounced on Su Zimo uncontrollably, burrowing into his embrace. "I'm fine. Sorry for making everyone worry." Su Zimo smiled and patted the little fox on the shoulder. When Monkey and the rest saw this, they looked at each other and burst into laughter. Ching Ching teased, "We weren't worried at all." However, there was indeed a little demon fox who couldn't eat and sleep every day. The little fox's cheeks heated up and even her ears were flushed red. She purred and reverted to her true form, burrowing into Su Zimo's embrace like a wisp of smoke. She clung onto Su Zimo's robes with 2 tiny claws, revealing a pair of pitch-black eyes that blinked at everyone. Everyone laughed even more happily. That laughter and smile came from the bottom of their hearts and was pure and innocent. Apart from the mockery towards the little fox, there was also the joy of seeing Su Zimo safe and sound. Initially, Su Zimo had something to say. However, when he saw everyone's smiles, he could not bring himself to say it. "Have you guys been well for the past month?" A moment later, Su Zimo asked, "Nobody came here because of me, right?" "No," Linghu waved it off casually and replied nonchalantly, "Too many things happened during the 1,000 demon meet. Nobody had the time to care about you, bro. Did you know that the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak who was after you was killed?" Linghu added mysteriously with a gloating expression. Solitary Cloud nodded as well. Levitating Goat Peak is in chaos and everyone is busy fighting for the position of overlord. There are even many fiend demons who are clamoring to head to the cultivation world to seek revenge for their fallen overlord. Seek revenge in the cultivation world? Su Zimo raised his brow in confusion. "That's right," Linghu continued, "all the demons said that the overlord of Levitating Goat Peak was killed by the 3 Dharma Dao Jun." Ha! Su Zimo could not help but chuckle. He could not be blamed for that. The 3 Dao lords came at the right time and took the blame for him. After all, no one would have imagined that an overlord would die in the hands of a low-level fiend demon. Coincidentally, the 3 Dao lords appeared in Thousand Demon Valley to fight for treasures and even fought against demons. It was obvious who the culprit was. Even if Su Zimo admitted it now, nobody would believe him and they would only think that he was spouting nonsense to flatter himself. The 6 of them chatted for a long time, but the atmosphere was still strange. There seemed to be a melancholy of parting mixed in their laughter. Gradually, everyone went silent. Finally, Monkey was the first to break the silence and asked, "You're leaving?" "Yes," Su Zimo did not hide anything and nodded. "I still have family and old friends in the cultivation world. After staying here for 100 years, I still miss them and want to visit them. Furthermore, there's something I have to do." The thing that Su Zimo mentioned was to send Hakka Dojin back to 100 Refinement Sect safely. Hakka Dojin had saved his life twice and even imparted the Tao to him. To him, Hakka Dojin was both a teacher and a friend. He was duty-bound to do this. Monkey and the others did not object. They knew that since Su Zimo had already made up his mind, there would be no changing it. Linghu patted his chest. "Bro, we're brothers. We'll follow you wherever you go. At most, you can just say that we're spirit beasts that you're rearing." Monkey nodded as well. "It's only fun for us brothers to be together. Otherwise, it'll be boring to take over this mountain and summon the wind and rain." Ching Ching and Little Fox nodded as well. Su Zimo looked at everyone and suddenly felt a lump in his throat as his eyes reddened. Fiend demons would definitely have to bear immense risks after entering the cultivation world. It was not that Linghu did not know that. However, he did not hesitate and was even willing to sacrifice himself to become a spirit beast that was reared. Monkey's dream was to find a mountain and take over it as its king, summoning the wind and rain. Right now, he had already done it. However, they were willing to give up everything for the sake of calling each other brothers. Although Su Zimo had thousands of words in his heart, he could not say anything. A sigh sounded from the Mingwang prayer beads. Even Hakka Dojin could not help but admit that although they were of different races, these demons before him were truly sincere and were worth befriending and following through life and death. Chapter 890. After a long silence, Su Zimo finally said, "I'll be returning to the cultivation world alone this time round. None of you are to follow me." Monkey, Linghu, and the others were about to speak when Su Zimo waved it off and interrupted, "Listen to me first. Apart from visiting old friends, I have other important matters to attend to in the cultivation world this time round. It's inconvenient for me to reveal my identity and I can't travel with you guys, no matter what." Su Zimo's identity was way too sensitive. 100 Refinement Sect was located in the Middle Continent. Furthermore, the Middle Continent was a major region with the most resplendent cultivation civilization in Tianhuang mainland. There were many sects and experts. The 4 unorthodox groups, Elixir Yang Sect, Leng Ro, and Chigurumon, were all located in the Middle Continent. For example, Chaos Essence Sect and Zephyr Thunder Palace, which had a huge feud with Su Zimo, were also located in the Middle Continent. Super sects had deep foundations and many eyes. It was fine if Su Zimo was targeted by those super sects on this trip to the Middle Continent. However, it would be too late for regrets if Hakka Dojin was implicated. Therefore, before Hakka Dojin was safely sent to 100 Refinement Sect, his identity could not be exposed. The battle in Myriad Phenomenon City shocked the cultivation world and it was no secret that he was sworn brothers with Monkey and the others. If he traveled with Monkey and the others, he would be a huge target and his identity would be exposed even if he changed his appearance. "Master, I'll go with you," Solitary Clouds said. "The cultivators outside have never seen me before. I can be your cover if I follow you." "There's no need for that," Su Zimo shook his head. "I'm still a little worried after I leave. You can control the situation if you stay behind." Monkey and the others were still low-level fiend demons and it was difficult to guarantee that no one would covet their territorial lord position. Although they had the backing of the overlord of Ape Chatter Ridge, there were still lunatics who might take the risk. After all, Howling Moon Mountain expanded its territory and killed many demons in the past 100 years. It was normal for it to have enemies. Solitary Cloud's eyes dimmed in disappointment. He became Su Zimo's mount because he wanted to follow him wholeheartedly. He wanted to grow with Su Zimo and eventually transform into a true dragon. Now that Su Zimo had left, his cultivation would once again hit a bottleneck. Su Zimo noticed Solitary Cloud's expression and pondered for a moment before saying, "Once Monkey and the others break through to become mid-level fiend demons and secure their positions as territorial lords, you can come and look for me if you wish to." In fact, Su Zimo's decision was also to give Solitary Cloud a way out and a choice. After all, he was not a real dragon. Solitary Cloud might not be able to transform into a true dragon even if he lowered himself to be a mount and followed beside him. Solitary Cloud understood what Su Zimo was implying and fell into deep thought. After a few more words of advice, Su Zimo stood up and said, "I'm leaving. You don't have to send me off." After saying that, he stood there motionlessly, as if he was waiting for something. A moment later, there was no movement. Su Zimo smiled helplessly and rubbed the little head that was buried in his chest gently. "How long are you going to pretend to be asleep for? Aren't you going to come out?" "Humph." The little fox harumphed sulkily and shook her head, glaring at Su Zimo begrudgingly. "Sir, why don't you let me follow you? I'll change into this form. I guarantee that no one will recognize me." "No, come out." Su Zimo shook his head with a smile and said resolutely. The little fox was disappointed and crawled out of Su Zimo's chest unwillingly, moving slowly bit by bit. Su Zimo blinked. "Hurry and come out. I've got a gift for you." "What is it?" The little fox knew that she could not persuade Su Zimo to stay and was a little unhappy as she asked distractedly. Su Zimo touched his storage bag and a beast's skin appeared in his palm. The beast's skin was rolled together and looked ancient. It was incomplete and had long fur on the outside. "What is this?" Unable to suppress her curiosity, the little fox closed in and reached out with her tiny claws to touch it carefully. The beast's skin that was initially rolled together opened slowly and mysterious runes were etched on it in a bedazzling manner. After the beast's skin was opened, it was filled with a unique aura. Everyone, including Solitary Cloud, felt the suppression of a mysterious power and could not move at all. "It's that dermic weapon, the demon sealing diagram," Solitary Cloud exclaimed when he recalled the peerless battle. "Yes, that's the diagram." Su Zimo's heart stirred and the demon sealing diagram rolled up once more, causing the mysterious power to vanish instantly. Su Zimo handed the demon sealing diagram to the little fox and smiled. "This is for you, don't be angry." Solitary Cloud's eyes were filled with envy. All the demons witnessed the might of the diagram in that peerless battle. To think that Su Zimo would give away such a treasure so casually. That won't do." A moment later, the little fox finally snapped to her senses and shook her head hurriedly. "Young master, you have to keep such a powerful treasure for yourself. I have Brother Monkey, Brother Tiger and Sister Ching Ching to protect me. I'll be fine." Su Zimo smiled. "Take it. It's useless for me to carry it around. I'm going to return to the cultivation world and there aren't that many fiend demons for me to suppress. Furthermore, I'm the strongest fiend demon of the same cultivation realm. None of the fiend demons are a match for me." He was not bragging. Given his current physique, he did not need to use any dermic powers or secret skills to suppress all the demons in his path. Of course, apart from that, Su Zimo had another thought. Back then, the old fox of the Great Qian Imperial Palace only left something for the little fox. However, in order to save him, it was snatched away by Glass Palace's Xuanyu Daoren. Su Zimo had always felt guilty about that. The little fox hugged the demon sealing diagram and pursed her lips tightly as she thought of something. Her eyes reddened and bean-sized teardrops swirled around, refusing to fall. Suzumo knew that the little fox must have recalled the item her mother left for her. Don't worry, I'll definitely get that treasure back for you personally. Suzumo's tone was resolute with a hint of killing intent. Back then, he could not retaliate against Xuanyu Doran's pursuit. His wrist was snapped and his cultivation was crippled, causing him to leap into the Dragon Burial Valley. Right now, Suzumo believed that he was not completely helpless against Xuanyu Doran. If he met Xuanyu Doran again, he would definitely get back at him for everything he suffered that day. Suzumo fondled the little fox's head and said tenderly, "Don't cry. With this demon ceiling diagram, your brother monkey, brother tiger and sister Ching Ching might even need your protection." The little fox found Suzumo's words interesting and laughed through her tears. Blushing slightly, she replied in embarrassment, "No way. All right, I'm leaving." Suzumo took a deep breath of air and steeled his heart. Turning to leave, he waved to everyone with his back facing them and disappeared into the night before long. The wind howled and the shadows of the trees filled his ears. Suzumo gazed into the distance with a resolute gaze and murmured, "Cultivation world, Suzumo, embark. My friends, my great foes, are you guys doing well?" Chapter 891. In Thousand Demon Valley, a scarlet-haired, green-robed figure sped along with rumbling demonic chi. His eyes were like lightning. It was Suzumo who had left Howling Moon Mountain. On the surface, Suzumo was observant and alert, paying attention to the movements in the forest as he traveled. In reality, there was another primordial spirit cultivating in his sea of consciousness. This was much more brilliant than multitasking. Multitasking would definitely require a cultivator's attention. However, Suzumo's scarlet-haired Een spirit and black-haired Essence spirit could focus on a single thing without affecting each other. At that moment, the scarlet-haired Een spirit was traveling while the black-haired Essence spirit was cultivating. It was not cultivating anything that it had learned previously, but a new cultivation technique, the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra. After leaving Howling Moon Mountain, Haka-Dojin imparted that cultivation technique to Suzumo. According to Haka-Dojin, he obtained that cultivation technique from an ancient ruin. Although its grade was unknown, it was extremely powerful and was the #1 fire-taming cultivation technique. Although Suzumo had been traveling for the past few days, his cultivation of the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra had not been delayed at all. With a Dharma characteristic expert like Haka-Dojin by his side, he could answer anything he did not understand at any time. Furthermore, Suzumo was a weapon refinement master to begin with and was rather close to the Tao of Fire. The sacred item of the Buddhist monasteries, the Siraka flower, possessed a fire attribute and had long been fused into his essence spirit. His comprehension of the Tao of Fire was extremely high. With the three great helpers, Suzumo spent less than a month to gain a basic understanding and establish the foundation of the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra. Following this, as long as he cultivated diligently and his cultivation deepened, he would naturally be able to unleash the power of that cultivation technique. Haka-Dojin was relieved when he saw that Suzumo was on the right track. When he obtained the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra, there was only a single sentence at the beginning of the cultivation technique. The cultivation of this technique was extremely dangerous. The slightest mistake would cause one to go berserk. The fire in one's heart would burst forth and one would burn to death. Later on, he had imparted this technique to a few of his disciples. Only one of them had achieved initial success in it. The rest of them had almost died. "Zimo, take a rest first." Haka-Dojin's voice rang out, "Today, I'll teach you something else." Suzumo nodded. The black-haired primordial spirit stopped and opened its eyes, showing a listening attitude. Haka-Dojin said, "I'm called Extreme Fire, which means that I have some accomplishments in the Tao of Fire." In reality, Haka-Dojin was being modest. If Suzumo knew the name of Haka-Dojin from 5,000 years ago, he would be so shocked that his jaw would drop. Haka-Dojin continued, "The reason why I have the Tao title of Extreme Fire is because of the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra. However, the most important thing is how to control fire and release the power of the Tao of fire to its limits. My essence spirit secret skill, Soaring Serpent Flame God, has a cultivation technique in the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra. You can cultivate it yourself in the future. Hakka Dojin said, next, I'll impart to you some of my insights on controlling fire and my trump card killing moves. As the saying went, the Tao was not to be imparted easily. Be it cultivation insights or trump cards, they would not be imparted easily. But now, Hakka Dojin was not holding back at all. Even though he knew that Su Zimo possessed an essence spirit of the demon race and had a feud with many supersets, Hakka Dojin had no reservations. Senior, this debt of gratitude is too great. To me, you're no different from a teacher. In his consciousness, Su Zimo bowed deeply as a disciple. During this period of time, Hakka Dojin had taught Su Zimo everything he knew. It was not only about cultivation. There were also many ways to refine weapons, which were explained in great detail. When he saw Su Zimo bowing as a disciple, Hakka Dojin's expression was emotional as he reminisced. Extreme Fire, once had 7 disciples. Back then, they were all rare paragons of Tianhuang mainland. 5,000 years have passed. I wonder how they are now and if they're still doing well. Su Zimo remained silent. 5,000 years had passed, and the world had changed. No one knew what would happen next. A moment later, Hakka Dojin calmed down and said, Zimo, given your potential and temperament, your future accomplishments will definitely surpass mine. Now that I've taken you in as my disciple, I might even rely on your reputation in the future. Su Zimo said indifferently, what's the use of reputation? It can't win against time and you'll eventually turn into dust. Well said, Hakka Dojin praised, it's truly rare for you to have such comprehension at your age. Hakka Dojin took a deep breath. My strongest dharmic art back then was called the Samadhi Tao Fire. Samadhi Tao Fire. Su Zimo frowned slightly and murmured softly. He had heard of the Samadhi True Fire before but did not know what it was. As though he could tell that Su Zimo was confused, Hakka Dojin said, the Samadhi True Fire is a flame controlled by perfected being Jin Dan. As for the Samadhi Tao Fire, it's a flame that only void reversions, the Dharma Tao Jun, can control. Hakka Dojin continued, of course, given the current strength of your essence spirit, you should be able to try condensing the Samadhi Tao Fire. However, at the end, Hakka Dojin paused for a moment. What's wrong? Su Zimo asked. Hakka Dojin explained, the so-called Samadhi refers to the condensation of the 3 Tao fires, essence, chi, and spirit. Using one's spirit consciousness to fuse the essence fire, chi fire, and spirit fire into one, that's the Samadhi Tao Fire. Su Zimo nodded to himself. A Tao fire cultivated with the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra was shockingly powerful to begin with. If the 3 Tao fires were fused into one, it was not hard to imagine how terrifying the lethality of the Samadhi Tao Fire would be. Hakka Dojin shook his head. This dharmic art can be said to be my strongest killing move. However, it's not easy to cultivate. If I want to condense the essence fire, chi fire, and spirit fire, I'm afraid I won't be able to achieve greater mastery without 1,000 years of effort. Su Zimo frowned in deep thought. No one knew what he was thinking about. Samadhi, Samadhi, Su Zimo murmured repeatedly, as though he was stuck in a dilemma. Why? Is there a problem? Hakka Dojin asked. Su Zimo pondered and said, apart from essence, chi, and spirit, is there any other meaning to the Samadhi of the Samadhi Tao Fire? Hakka Dojin was slightly stunned. There's no such thing. Since ancient times, Samadhi has always been this way. Then, Hakka Dojin laughed and asked, why? Do you have other interpretations? Hakka Dojin was just asking casually. Unexpectedly, Su Zimo really nodded and said, can Samadhi refer to the immortal Tao, Buddhist Tao and Fiend Tao? The Samadhi Tao fire is the condensation of the three Tao fires. Hakka Dogen's body trembled when he heard that, as though he was struck by lightning. Although he was the Dharma Tao Jun and had cultivated for thousands of years, he had never had such an interpretation of Samadhi. Furthermore, Hakka Dogen had to admit that the structure and boldness of the immortal Tao, Buddhist Tao, and Fiend Tao fire were much greater than the essence, Qi and spirit. Hakka Dogen was almost certain that if this method worked, the power of the Samadhi Tao fire would reach an unimaginable level. Su Zimo would also create a brand new chapter in the Tao of Fire. Chapter 892. The more Hakka Dogen thought about Su Zimo's idea, the more excited he became. Samadhi was the immortal, Buddhist and Fiend Taos. This was the structure, this was the vision, this was the spirit. Actually, it was reasonable for Su Zimo to have such insights and comprehension at the nascent soul realm. The ancients, including Hakka Dogen, had never changed or doubted their understanding of Samadhi because all of them specialized in a single Tao. However, Su Zimo's situation was special. Before he reached the nascent soul realm, he cultivated the immortal, Buddhist and Fiend Taos. After the nascent soul realm, he had the support of the immortal and Buddhist heaven-grade cultivation techniques for spirit refinement as well. Furthermore, he had been cultivating the demonic Tao the entire time. That was the reason why he could have such a setup and vision. It was something that no one in the past dared to imagine. More importantly, for the past 100 years, in order to establish his Tao, Su Zimo had studied the many ancient cultivation techniques left behind by his predecessors. He had expended a lot of effort and his comprehension had already far surpassed that of the nascent soul realm. That was the reason why he could say such shocking words. He was the only one who could say such things. Hakka Dogen could not help but say, if this technique is successful, the Samadhi Tao fire might not even be the end. You cultivate the demonic Tao and possess the divine phoenix bone. If you can condense the fire of the demonic Tao and fuse it, it will be the unprecedented Kachurati Tao fire. Hakka Dogen was excited and almost could not control himself. In deep thought, Su Zimo murmured to himself, the Kachurati Tao fire might not be the end either. Hakka Dogen opened his mouth slightly with a shocked expression and could no longer speak. Even the Kachurati was not the end? What other shocking ideas did this lad have? For the first time, Hakka Dogen realized that he could not understand Su Zimo. Su Zimo wanted to establish his Tao. Hakka Dogen was clear about this matter. Along the way, he had witnessed the efforts that Su Zimo had put in for this. He admired Su Zimo's persistence. However, in his heart, he was somewhat disapproving. This was because Hakka Dogen knew that if he wanted to establish the Tao, he wanted all mortals in the world to be able to cultivate and become dragons. This was even harder than ascending to the heavens and becoming an immortal. It was impossible for Su Zimo alone to achieve this. But now, Hakka Dogen realized that he was wrong. It was as if he could see an unprecedented glorious era from Su Zimo. In that great era, even if one did not have a spirit root, one could still cultivate and change one's fate. Everyone was like a dragon, inviolable. The human race had truly risen. Hakka Dogen thought to himself, I'm lucky enough to live to this age. I hope I can witness the arrival of that glorious era with my own eyes. In the following period of time, Hakka Dogen only imparted the Tao. There was less time for him to answer questions. This was because he knew that Su Zimo would have his own unique understanding of many Tao techniques. He hoped that Su Zimo could walk his own path. Regarding this, he also firmly believed without a doubt. It was only after another month that Su Zimo truly left the demon region. The 10,000 Demon Valley was so big that even with Su Zimo's speed, he did not rest much. He traveled all the way through mountains and rivers, and it took him more than 2 months to get out. The 10,000 Demon Valley was only a corner of the central continent. One could imagine how vast and boundless the central continent was. Su Zimo had never been to the central continent, so he knew nothing about the geography of the central continent. It was Haka Dojin who took out a map of the central continent from his storage bag and handed it to Su Zimo. Su Zimo had always carried Haka Dojin's storage bag with him. However, Haka Dojin's consciousness imprint was on it, so he could not open it at all. Later on, when he found out that Haka Dojin was still alive, Su Zimo naturally returned the storage bag untouched. Haka Dojin said, "This map is from 5,000 years ago. However, I don't think there will be any major changes to the locations of some major sections." Yes, Su Zimo nodded and looked at the map in his palm, extending his spirit consciousness into it. This map was different from the previous one. Although it did not seem big, as long as one extended their spirit consciousness, they would feel as though they were looking down on the ground with a wide field of vision. As long as one chanted the name of the place in their hearts, an area would light up in a magical manner. A moment later, when Haka Dojin saw that Su Zimo was silent, he thought that the latter was worried about his family and said, "There's no hurry to return to 100 Refinement Sect. Why don't we head to Elixir Yang Sect to take a look first?" Xiaoning was a cultivator of Elixir Yang Sect. After they parted ways in Myriad Phenomenon City, she said that she wanted to return to the North region to pay respects to her brother, Su Hong. Now that 100 years had passed, Xiaoning should have returned to Elixir Yang Sect long ago. Su Zimo shook his head. "There's no need for that. We're already in the Middle Continent and there's no hurry to meet them. Let's head to 100 Refinement Sect first." The four unorthodox groups were all in the Middle Continent and were not far from each other. It was rather convenient for him to visit Xiaoning or his old friends from Misty Peak, Ji Qingtian and Leng Ro. Xiaoning had the night spirit with her, so Su Zimo was not worried. The only thing he was worried about was Ji Qingtian, Leng Ro, and the others. Di'in had once declared that not only was he going to kill Su Zimo, he was going to kill everyone around him as well. That was the reason why Su Zimo wanted to kill him and fought a life-and-death battle with Di'in. Unfortunately, due to the appearance of the Rakshasa race and Protoss, Di'in managed to escape. Di'in was a vengeful person. Therefore, he could do anything if he harbored hatred in his heart. 100 years have passed. I wonder how you're doing now. Su Zimo lamented internally as a cold glint flashed through his eyes. Di'in was blessed with providence and possessed terrifying talent. He also inherited the sovereign's legacy and had once created the chaotic green lotus phenomenon, surpassing his predecessors. Throughout his cultivation journey, he had only been defeated by Su Zimo. Su Zimo believed that even if he had been defeated, Di'in would not sink into depravity and fade into the masses. Up till now, even if the Protoss and the Rakshasa race were included, Di'in was a mortal enemy that Su Zimo had never encountered before. That was also the reason why Su Zimo knew that Ji Qingtian, Little Fatty, and the others would definitely not be able to deal with Di'in. Su Zimo decided to send Haka Dojin back to 100 Refinement Sect before heading to Elixir Yang Sect. At that thought, Su Zimo noted down the location of 100 Refinement Sect and put away the map before speeding off. After leaving Thousand Demon Valley, he traveled for another 3 days and 3 nights before he gradually sensed some signs of life. Everywhere he looked, he could see some courtyards in villages with smoke rising from their chimneys. In fact, Su Zimo felt as though a lifetime had passed. After traveling for another half a day, he could see a city up ahead that was bustling with traffic and flying swords. Traces of cultivators could be seen everywhere. It was no wonder why the Middle Continent was the most prosperous region of the cultivation world. It was truly rare to see such a bustling cultivation scene at the borders. After leaving Thousand Demon Valley, Su Zimo had already changed into a black-haired, green-robed man. He had also changed his appearance, turning into a slightly boorish man. Of course, Su Zimo traveled with the wind at an extremely fast speed. In the eyes of many cultivators below, he was merely a streak of light that could not be seen clearly. Su Zimo was filled with stamina. No matter how long he traveled, he would be able to recover after resting for a night. After another 3 months, he was finally about to arrive at the location of 100 Refinements sect on the map. For the past few days, Hakka Dojin had been quiet instead. Su Zimo knew that this feeling was rather complicated and was more like homesickness. After all, 5,000 years had passed and the world had changed. Nobody knew how 100 Refinements sect was doing right now or if his old friends were safe. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's ears twitched and he vaguely caught the sound of weapons clashing in the distance, mixed with some shouting. Typically, the emblem of a sect would be imprinted on the sleeves or waist of their robes. On the sleeves of the 10 Jinying Jinjuan, there was a dark flame imprinted on them. It was extremely sinister and exuded a sinister aura. On the other side, on the sleeves of the man and 2 women, there was an ancient cauldron imprinted on them. This cauldron, Su Zimo murmured softly with a reminiscing gaze. That imprint was familiar and he should have seen it somewhere before. That cauldron is the emblem of 100 Refinements sect. The Hakka Dojin's voice sounded and Su Zimo was enlightened. Back when he saw that imprint, it was on the body of the Hakka Dojin beneath the cold lake of Tsanglang mountain range. Nangong Ling, stop persevering. Within the formation, the only perfected nascent soul, Perfected Lord, smiled smugly and said leisurely, if not for the fact that I pitted junior sisters Han Yen and Ru Xian, you would have died long ago. Ha 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 ha. The remaining 9 Jinying Jinjuan burst into laughter and roamed their gazes brazenly on the 2 female cultivators. The 2 female cultivators' clothes were tattered and they were humiliated to be stared at by so many naked gazes. In their fluster, the dermic powers in their hands nearly dissipated and they were captured. When the man named Nangong Ling caught sight of that, he said hurriedly, "Junior sisters, don't fall for it. This is Wu Yuan's psychological attack. This place isn't far from the sect. As long as fellow sect members pass by and report to the sect, we'll be saved." When they heard that, the 2 female cultivators calmed down significantly with resolute gazes. Fufu. Wu Yuan sneered when he heard that and killing intent surged in his eyes. Nangong Ling, I don't mind telling you that this is the Hellfire formation. Right now, I'm only activating the first level of the formation, Black Smoke. If I activate the second level of the formation, Hellfire, the 3 of you will turn into ashes in less than 10 breaths. Nangong Ling's expression changed. He knew that Wu Yuan was not bluffing. If the Hellfire formation was truly activated, they would definitely not be able to defend against it. Even now, the black smoke billowed within the formation with a pungent smell. It was difficult for them to hold their breaths in the midst of a battle and it was inevitable that they would inhale some of it. However, the 10 people opposite them had their mouths and noses covered with special veils and were not affected at all. As time passed by, the amount of black smoke they inhaled would only increase and their combat strength would decrease sharply. There was no way they could escape. Nangong Ling shouted, "Wu Yuan, you can come at me alone if you have any grudges. Why must you make things difficult for the 2 of them? I'll surrender and you'll let the 2 of them go." Ha 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 ha. As though he had heard the greatest joke in the world, Wu Yuan said, "Nangong Ling, you're dead for sure today. You're not qualified to negotiate with me." Sweeping his gaze, Wu Yuan's gaze landed on the graceful bodies of the 2 female cultivators. Licking his lips, he snickered menacingly, "Not only do I want the 2 items on them, I want their bodies as well. Nangong Ling, when the time comes, I'll allow you to watch from the sidelines, ha 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 ha." Wu Yuan's words were extremely vicious. Nangong Ling's expression turned terrible as he jumped on the spot and cursed hysterically. "Old dog Wu Yuan, I'll **CK all your ancestors. Fight me one-on-one if you've got the guts. I'll fight you with a single hand and I'll beat the shit out of you." Even the 2 female cultivators were dumbfounded, let alone Wu Yuan's group. Nangong Ling no longer had the sage-like demeanor of a cultivator. He was no different from a marketplace thug. Ouch! In his agitation, Nangong Ling was caught off guard and a wound appeared on his body, causing fresh blood to flow. F***ck your mother. Nangong Ling glared at the cultivator who stabbed him and cursed loudly, since I'm going to die anyway, I'll curse to my heart's content first. Wu Yuan frowned before saying with a fake smile, are you trying to shout so that the people nearby can hear you? I'd advise you to give up. This formation can isolate the vision of spirit consciousness, let alone sound. To tell you the truth, the communication Dao talismans that you guys secretly released just now have long been devoured by the Hellfire formation. Nangong Ling and the other two had terrible expressions. Wu Yuan said coldly, furthermore, even if someone passes by, they won't know what's going on here. Who would dare to be a busybody and get themselves into trouble? Right then, right after Wu Yuan said that, another voice sounded from outside the formation. I've always liked to be a busybody. Chapter 894. The expressions of the cultivators in the formation changed. None of them expected that the moment Wu Yuan finished speaking, the Hellfire formation would be able to isolate spirit consciousness voice transmissions and a voice would be transmitted from outside. That was truly ironic. To Nangong Ling and the other two's delight, the person seemed to be here to help them. As the controller of the Hellfire formation, Wu Yuan could naturally see the situation outside through the billowing black smoke. Wu Yuan took a look and saw that there was only a single person outside. Furthermore, the person's cultivation realm was at late-stage nascent soul, that was why he was slightly relieved. At the side, Jining Jinjuan looked at Wu Yuan with a murderous gaze and made a beheading gesture to the outside. Wu Yuan shook his head. For some reason, he felt that there was something strange about this person that was indescribable. He did not want to cause trouble and merely wanted this person to leave as soon as possible. Fellow Taoist, let me give you a piece of advice. Don't meddle in other people's business. You can't afford to meddle in this matter either. Wu Yuan said coldly with a hint of threat in his tone. Fellow Taoist, we're disciples of 100 Refinements sect. Please help us seek help from 100 Refinements sect. I'll never forget this favor and will definitely repay you handsomely in the future. Nangong Ling shouted for help hurriedly. Wu Yuan sneered, I've already said that your voice can't be transmitted out and he can't hear it either. I can hear it, the voice outside sounded once more with a hint of mockery. How is that possible? Wu Yuan's expression changed slightly and he frowned. Not only could this person's voice be transmitted into the formation, he could even hear what was going on inside. If that was the case, what secrets did this Hellfire formation have in the eyes of this person? Right then, the person outside chuckled gently and said indifferently, this formation of yours is filled with loopholes. In my eyes, it's no different from being transparent. The moment he said that, the person reached out and grabbed a formation flag that was inserted into the ground. Exerting his strength slightly, he pulled it out. The dozens of formation flags had to be placed in specific positions to form a formation. As long as one flag was removed, the formation would naturally dissipate. A cold wind blew, and in the blink of an eye, the billowing smoke had already disappeared. Nangong Ling and the others looked over and saw a figure standing not far away. He had black hair and a green robe. His face was rough and his face was weathered, as if he had just experienced a long journey. This green-robed man was only at the late nascent soul stage. There was nothing special about him, and there was no sign of a large sect or power on his sleeve. Nangong Ling and the other two were slightly disappointed. One of the women had an anxious expression. As she defended against the dermic weapon flying swords around her, she shouted, "My name is Ru Xian. Remember, hurry and seek help from 100 Refinements sect." When Ru Xian saw that the green-robed man was motionless, she could not help but urge, "Hurry and go. Why are you standing there like an idiot? You won't be able to escape in a while." Wu Yuan's expression was gloomy. The Netherworld Fire Grand Formation was gone, and Nangong Ling and the other two were able to see the light of day again. This would definitely add countless variables to the situation. Get rid of them as soon as possible, dead or alive. A look of determination flashed through Wu Yuan's eyes. At the same time, he sent a voice transmission with his spirit consciousness, asking one of the Jinying Jinjuan to step forward and stop the green-robed man not far away. Kill. Wu Yuan led the 8 Jinying Jinjuan and surrounded Nangong Ling and the other 2, prepared to attack with all his might to kill the 3 of them completely in case anything else happened. On the other side, a Jinying Jinjuan strode towards the green-robed man expressionlessly and conjured hand seals secretly, prepared to kill him in a single strike. The green-robed man smiled gently at that person. Just as that person was about to attack, his vision blurred as a green shadow flashed and a suffocating aura surged over. You. The moment that person said a single word, his vision turned black and he felt a sharp pain in his mind. Thereafter, his consciousness sank and he lost consciousness completely. A headless corpse fell into a pool of blood with a thud. Ah! When one of the female cultivators saw that, she could not help but exclaim. Wu Yuan turned around slowly and his pupils constricted slightly as he glared at the corpse on the ground. It was too fast. They had just surrounded Nangong Ling and the other 2 and had yet to attack, but the battle was already over. There was no complicated process. The green-robed man strode forward and smashed his opponent's head with a single palm strike. It was simple, clean and clean. Suddenly, Wu Yuan realized that the intruder was troublesome. If they did not deal with him properly, there was a high chance that they would suffer a huge loss. Raising his head slightly, Wu Yuan gestured for the remaining 8 Jinying Jinjuan to surround Nangong Ling and the other 2 and get rid of them as soon as possible. With a single thought, he retrieved the dozens of formation flags that were planted on the ground. Friend, don't blame me for what's about to happen since you're the one who's heading straight for the gates of hell. Wu Yuan's glabella shone and he injected his massive spirit consciousness into the formation flags before waving his hand. The dozens of formation flags tore through the air and the runes on the flagpoles shone with a series of mysterious glows. With a whoosh, the flagpoles burst into flames. The flames shone with a dark light, as though they were hellfire from hell. Although they were burning, they emitted a sinister aura. It's the hellfire spear. Nangong Ling's expression changed as she exclaimed. The other female cultivator who had not spoken the entire time frowned with a worried expression and could not help but remind, fellow Taoist, be careful. That technique is extremely powerful and you can't take it head-on. The woman's voice was melodious like flowing water and was pleasing to the ears. Fufu, it's too late to remind me now. Sneering coldly, Wu Yuan conjured hand seals and hollered, condense. Swoosh. The dozens of formation flags gathered rapidly in front of the green-robed man as though they were fused into one, forming a gigantic spear that burned with hellfire that streaked through the voids. The green-robed man looked at the incoming spear and tilted his head slightly. His eyes shone as though he was in a daze, as though he was thinking about something. It's over. When she saw that, Nangong Ling's heart sank completely. It wasn't easy for her to encounter a cultivator, but he turned out to be a reckless brute who didn't know what was good for him. That brute is way too careless. Ru Xian grumbled, how can he be distracted in the middle of a battle? How did he cultivate to the nascent soul realm? The gigantic hellfire spear was about to pierce the green-robed man's head. Heis. The woman with the melodious voice sighed gently and turned her head slightly, as though she could not bear to watch. Right then, the green-robed man seemed to have snapped out of his stupor and suddenly extended his palm, snapping his fingers. Swoosh! Suddenly, a ball of golden flames appeared on the green-robed man's fingertips. The ball of golden flames was only the size of a fist. However, it emitted a sacred and flawless aura. The moment it was released, the surrounding cold aura was purged completely. The green-robed man looked at the golden flames on his fingertips and seemed to be delighted as he grinned and flicked his fingers gently. The golden flames floated and collided with the hellfire spear. Shing! The netherworld fire that was burning on the long spear was almost instantly extinguished. Of course, the golden flames dissipated as well. Wu Yuan was shocked. What sort of flame was that to be able to extinguish the blazing flames on the spear with such a small ball of flames? As for Nangong Ling and the other two, apart from shock, there was also a hint of doubt in their eyes. The green-robed man's golden flames were extremely sacred and were completely different from the flames they cultivated. However, they could sense a resonance from the flames. In 100 Refinement sect, only cultivators who cultivated that cultivation technique could have such a resonance with one another. However, that cultivation technique could not be imparted to outsiders. Chapter 895. Although the hellfire on the gigantic spear was extinguished by the golden flames, the might of the spear formed from dozens of formation flags was still present and it did not stop. If one were to allow the gigantic spear to strike their bodies, they would be torn apart instantly without a corpse. The green-robed burly man extended his palm calmly and spread his fingers. Dermic powers surged as he grabbed the incoming spear. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The world seemed to have stopped. The green-robed burly man blocked the spear that was thicker than his body in midair barehanded without retreating at all. Wu Yuan's expression turned extremely terrible. The two female cultivators' mouths were agape and their eyes were widened, not realizing that they had lost their composure for a moment. That was the full-powered attack of a perfected nascent soul cultivator. Furthermore, it carried the power of multiple runes on dozens of formation flags. Even though Nangong Ling felt that she was a paragon of the current era with combat strength that surpassed all of her peers, she had to avoid that attack and did not dare to take it head-on. To think that the green-robed burly man of unknown origins would be able to devour the hellfire with a casual flick of a flame. Thereafter, he extended his hand to block the gigantic spear in a casual manner, as though he did not use his full strength. Most importantly, he was only at late-stage nascent soul. Right then, the green-robed burly man smiled at Wu Yuan. Take a move of mine as well. Before he finished his sentence, the green-robed burly man flicked his sleeves and swept up the spear in midair, flinging it towards Wu Yuan and the others. The moment the spear left his hands, it transformed into dozens of formation flags once more. Ooh! Ooh! The formation flags tore through the air and turned into dozens of black streaks of light, letting out a shuddering sound. Wu Yuan and the 8 Jinying Jinjuan behind him were shocked and their eyes were filled with fear. The dozens of formation flags shot over and everywhere they passed, the mud on the ground churned and sand flew. The dozens of formation flags pierced over at the same time and the weather changed in a terrifying manner. Instantly, Wu Yuan and the others felt as though the skies had darkened. Their eyes were already filled with the black light, and there was no way to avoid it. Heavens! Ru Xian's red lips were agape as her eyes were filled with disbelief. She murmured, "Is this really done by humans?" Everyone could clearly see that the green-robed man had only thrown it backwards. He didn't use any hand seals or secret techniques at all. It was a complete outburst of his physical strength. Generally speaking, before a cultivator reached the conjoint body realm, their physical bodies would be relatively weak. Ru Xian had never seen such terrifying physical strength. Not to mention Jinying Jinjuan of the sect, even a void reversion would not be able to reach this level. With a wave of his hand, the color of heaven and earth changed. In Nangong Ling's eyes, the green-robed man's attack was not only a terrifying explosive force, but also something else that was even more terrifying. Precise trajectory and landing point. The dozens of array flags were not thrown randomly. If one were to look at it carefully, the trajectory and landing point of each flag were extremely meticulous. Although they were thrown out at the same time, they were thrown at different speeds. Not only did they avoid the three of them perfectly, they even sealed off all possible escape routes for Wu Yuan and the others. If Nangong Ling were to attack, she would be able to do the same as long as she observed for a moment. However, the green-robed man's instantaneous judgment in the middle of a battle had already exceeded Nan Gongling's imagination. Was this a coincidence? If it wasn't, how precise was his judgment? His control and grasp of the battle had already reached a level of detail, to the point that it was breathtaking. 100 thoughts flashed through everyone's minds. Dozens of array flags with a murderous and destructive aura had already arrived before them. Run! That was the only thought in everyone's minds, including Wu Yuan. Against such a terrifying attack, everyone only had a single path of retreat. Jining Zhenjuan, who reacted quickly, fled from the spot. Those who were slower had their bodies pierced by the flagpoles. A huge amount of energy surged into their bodies, blasting them into pieces. Jining Zhenjuan, who was the first to flee, had just dodged a flag. Before he could rejoice, he felt a sharp object penetrating his body and bringing him back to the spot. Poof! 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 The array flags descended and covered the skies as a blood mist spewed out. In the blink of an eye, 8 Jining Zhenjuan were dead. The essence spirits of nascent souls were extremely fragile. Even if some essence spirits escaped from their bodies and were exposed to the outside world, they could not withstand the killing intent on the battlefield and dissipated before long. The only one who was still holding on was Wu Yuan, who had the highest cultivation realm on the battlefield. He was the first to react and executed his movement technique consecutively, dodging 3 array flags. However, there were dozens of array flags. It was impossible for him to escape the range of the array flags. Instantly, Wu Yuan realized that as well. His gaze flickered as he slapped his storage bag and summoned a black shield. Wu Yuan bit the tip of his tongue and spat out a stream of essence blood. Instantly, his face turned much paler. That mouthful of essence blood of cultivators was the hardest to obtain. It contained decades or even hundreds of years of effort and would not be used unless absolutely necessary. The essence blood splattered on the black shield with sizzling sounds. Swoosh! The black shield expanded rapidly and a series of dark and cold flames burned on its surface. Wu Yuan grit his teeth and curled his body, hiding behind the black shield. The moment he did that, the array flags descended and struck the black shield heavily. Boom! A deafening sound echoed and Wu Yuan's entire body was enveloped in an array formation. More than half of the flames on the black shield were extinguished. Wu Yuan's arms that supported the shield were numb and he could no longer feel them. Swoosh! Wu Yuan heaved a sigh of relief. No matter what, he managed to survive it. I can't stay here for long. I've got to retreat. That thought flashed through Wu Yuan's mind. Just as he was about to get up, he caught a glimpse of something and was scared out of his wits. Unknowingly, the green-robed burly man who was initially standing not far away had already arrived before him. The two of them were inches apart. The green-robed burly man was looking at him with a fake smile as he raised his palm slowly, clenching it into a fist and smashing it down. Wu Yuan's mind went blank and he could not react in time. He raised the black shield that was burning with hellfire once more and blocked it. Boom! It was yet another deafening sound that was even more terrifying than before. The ground trembled. Nan Gongling and the other two shuddered in fright from the deafening sound. A figure was sent flying dozens of feet away and laid motionlessly on the ground, covered in blood and mud. Wu Yuan's face was frightfully pale and his gaze was dim as he coughed out blood repeatedly in a tragic manner. The black shield fell to the side and the dark flames on it were extinguished a long time ago. Crack! 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 Apart from coughing out blood, a series of strange sounds could be heard from Wu Yuan's body that sent chills down one's spine. Nan Gongling and the others gulped. They could tell that it was the sound of bones cracking. Even the black shield could not defend against the punch. The power penetrated the shield and shattered all the bones in Wu Yuan's body. The might of a single punch was so terrifying. Nan Gongling and the other two knew that although Wu Yuan was still hanging on to his last breath, it was over. Chapter 896. Not good. Right then, Ru Xian's expression changed as she exclaimed, "The hellfire on the black shield hasn't disappeared by the time the brute attacked. His fist must have been tainted by the hellfire when it struck the shield." Nangong Ling was shocked when she heard that as well. She knew the power of the hellfire. As long as one's body was tainted by it, there was no way to expel it. The hellfire was pervasive and could even penetrate deep into one's bones, burning a cultivator from the inside out until nothing was left. Furthermore, the entire process was extremely painful. Most of the time, cultivators would not be able to withstand it and would reach out to grab it. However, they would end up with wounds all over their bodies. Nangong Ling and Ru Xian looked at the green-robed man's right hand instinctively. Both of them were stunned. The green-robed man's right hand was fair and tender with long fingers. There were no wounds on it, nor were there any signs of it being burned. Strange. The two of them looked at each other, full of doubts. The other female cultivator, Yu Hanyun, who was standing at the side, lowered her head in silence. However, she would raise her head occasionally and steal glances at the green-robed man with a curious glint in her eyes. Nangong Ling and Ru Xian did not notice it. However, just now, she could clearly see that the green-robed man's fist was indeed tainted by a cluster of hellfire when it struck the black shield. However, the cluster of hellfire did not seep into the green-robed man's flesh and bones and burn as expected. Instead, the cluster of hellfire stuck to the green-robed man's palm and flickered, as though it could extinguish at any moment. The green-robed man was not bothered and waved his palm casually. The cluster of hellfire was strangely extinguished. What was the meaning of this? When Yu Hanyun saw that, she was so shocked that she nearly bit her tongue. This ability was completely beyond her understanding. Jining Jinjuan's body could ignore hellfire. Nangong Ling and the other two had their own thoughts. Wu Yuan's body was shattered and there was no longer a need to save it. An essence spirit floated out from Wu Yuan's glabella with a flustered expression and eyes filled with fear as it fled into the distance. "Oh no, he's trying to escape." Nangong Ling noticed this and quickly chased after him. But after a few steps, Nangong Ling gave up. The speed at which one's essence soul traveled was faster than that of one's physical body. Moreover, the two of them were over 100 feet apart. Wu Yuan's essence spirit had fled first, so it was already impossible for him to catch up. Alas! Nangong Ling sighed, looking vexed. It wasn't his fault. He had not expected that Wu Yuan's essence spirit would be able to escape outside. Normally speaking, Jining Jinjuan's primordial spirit was extremely fragile, and there were too many things that he was afraid of. Outside, be it the scorching sun or the cold wind, they could destroy the essence spirit of a nascent soul realm cultivator. However, Wu Yuan had already cultivated to the perfected nascent soul realm. His essence soul was already wrapped in a wisp of pure yang qi, which could protect him in the outside world for a long time. At the very least, it wouldn't be a problem for him to escape back to the sect. When she saw that, Ru Xian understood as well. Rolling her eyes at the green-robed burly man, she muttered softly, "You're truly a boorish man. Who asked you to use so much strength to send him flying so far? Great, you've released the tiger back into the mountains." Yu Hanyun frowned slightly and hollered softly with a stern gaze, "Ru Xian." No matter what, the green-robed burly man was their savior. How could she speak to him that way? Ru Xian knew that it was inappropriate as well and stuck out her tongue without saying anything else. Yu Hanyun turned around and bowed to the green-robed burly man, saying apologetically, "Junior sister Ru Xian didn't mean it. Please don't take offense, fellow Taoist." The green-robed burly man smiled indifferently and looked at Wu Yuan's essence spirit that was escaping into the distance. Suddenly, he opened his mouth and spat out a strange syllable. "OM." The entire void seemed to tremble for a moment. In that short period of time, Wu Yuan had already escaped dozens of feet away. Just as he was feeling the joy of surviving a calamity, a voice sounded in his ears. It was vast and sacred, like a huge bell that shook one's mind. Between heaven and earth, this voice seemed to reverberate for a long time without end. Wu Yuan's essence spirit shuddered, and the wisp of pure yang qi that was initially enveloping his essence spirit was shattered by the voice. Without the protection of the wisp of pure yang qi, Wu Yuan's essence spirit was outside and flickered in the cold wind. His aura turned extremely weak and he fell from midair. When Ru Xian saw that, she opened her mouth uncontrollably, as though a duck egg could be stuffed in. Although the green-robed burly man did not look like there was anything special about him, he had done shocking things time and time again. Just now, it was the same for that move of his. An essence spirit was sent crashing down with a roar. Nangong Ling seemed to be much more knowledgeable than the two female cultivators as he said in a deep voice, "That's the Sanskrit of the Buddhist monasteries." The green-robed burly man glanced at him and nodded. Nangong Ling frowned again and pondered. Sound Domain's secret skills were extremely rare and he had never cultivated them despite his background. As for Sound Domain's secret skills of the Buddhist monasteries, the most famous one was the Lion Roar of Diamond Monastery. However, just now, that Sanskrit voice was vast, righteous, and sacred. It was clearly not the same as the ferocious lion roar. Although he could recognize that it was the Sanskrit voice of the Buddhist monasteries, he could not identify which Sound Domain's secret skill it was. The green-robed burly man moved and walked towards Wu Yuan's essence spirit in the distance unhurriedly. He was not worried that Wu Yuan would escape. The pure yang qi outside Wu Yuan's essence spirit had already been shattered by the Sanskrit voice. Even if he did not attack, Wu Yuan would not be able to last long and would die outside. Nangong Ling, Yu Hanyun and Ru Xian followed hurriedly. Ru Xian pouted slightly and harumphed, whispering, "Seriously, why didn't you release it earlier when you knew about Sound Domain's secret skills? You made me blame you wrongly." The green-robed burly man did not reply. Ru Xian rolled her eyes and leaned over, asking with a grin, "Hey, are you trying to show off in front of us two beauties to attract our attention?" Initially, Nangong Ling was still in deep thought. When he heard that, he raised his head and looked at the green-robed burly man with hostility. He even stood in front of Yu Hanyun intentionally, separating Yu Hanyun from the green-robed burly man. The green-robed burly man remained silent and walked forward with his hands behind his back, as though he could not be bothered. However, Ru Xian was relentless and chased after him. "If you don't say anything, it means that you're admitting it, right? Tell me, have you taken a liking to me or seen your sister Lu?" Ru Xian. Yu Hanyun had a helpless expression and hollered once more. Right then, the four of them had already arrived before Wu Yuan's essence spirit. In that short period of time, Wu Yuan's essence spirit was exposed and his aura was extremely weak, as though he could die at any moment. When he saw Ru Xian approach again, the green-robed burly man said slowly, "I want him alive. I want to ask him something. The reason why I didn't release the Sanskrit voice immediately was because I was afraid that he would be shocked to death." Ru Xian was stunned. Although the green-robed burly man's tone was calm, it was filled with a domineering aura. Furthermore, she could not refute it at all. Wu Yuan's essence spirit had already escaped dozens of feet away but was still reduced to such a state. It was not hard to imagine that if the green-robed burly man had used a Sound Domain secret skill the moment Wu Yuan's essence spirit escaped, Wu Yuan's essence spirit would have been destroyed on the spot. Chapter 897. The green-robed man was none other than Su Zimo, who had changed his appearance. Unless one's spirit consciousness far surpassed his, they would not be able to discover his disguise, let alone his original appearance. It was Hakka Adojin's intention to keep him alive. Although Hakka Adojin had only said that once since he attacked, Su Zimo could sense the anger in Hakka Adojin's tone. 5,000 years later, 100 Refinement sect was bullied and even encountered by Hakka Dojin. He had to get to the bottom of it. Ru Xian closed in and grabbed Wu Yuan's essence spirit angrily in front of Su Zimo. All of a sudden, Su Zimo's heart skipped a beat as he sensed something and pulled Ru Xian back. "What are you?" Ru Xian frowned and shouted, but before she could finish, she stopped abruptly. Wu Yuan's essence spirit started burning strangely and dark flames flickered in a sinister manner. Ru Xian's face was pale with fright. One could imagine that just now, if not for Su Zimo holding her back, her hands would have been stained with hellfire. At the very least, she would lose an arm. At the very least, she might even die. "Don't worry, I won't die for nothing. The experts of Hellfire Hall will definitely find you guys and take revenge for me." Wu Yuan's voice rang out from the raging nether fire. It was filled with endless resentment. "TSK, TSK, TSK, none of you will be able to escape. 100 Refinement sect, wait for our revenge. Piak." Su Zimo flicked his sleeves and a dermic power seal smashed down, shattering Wu Yuan's essence spirit. It was clear that Wu Yuan was trying to commit suicide. Since there was no way to save him, he might as well kill him and have some peace. With his spirit consciousness, Su Zimo collected the storage bags of Wu Yuan and the others. He took a casual glance and there was nothing valuable. Su Zimo picked up the black shield. This black shield was able to withstand his power without shattering, so it could be considered a treasure. Of course, to Su Zimo, this thing was not even worth his attention. Just the few battles of the 1,000 demon meat alone were enough for him to gain a lot. The storage bags of the Overlord of Levitating Goat Peak were with him. Right then, Yu Hanyun arrived before Su Zimo and bowed, saying sincerely, "I am Yu Hanyun of 100 Refinement sect. Thank you for saving our lives, fellow Taoist." Nangong Ling felt that the way Yu Hanyun looked at Su Zimo had some other meaning. She couldn't help but feel sour in her heart. She quickly transmitted a message, "Han Yen, be careful. This person's identity is unknown. He seems to know the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra. Let's ask him about his origin first. That's a story for later." Yu Hanyun shook her head gently and sent a voice transmission, "No matter what, it's a fact that this fellow Taoist saved us. If not for him, the three of us would have been captured alive by Wu Yuan a long time ago. I wonder how humiliated we would be right now." For a moment, Nangong Ling could not refute. Yu Hanyun nudged Ru Xian gently and sent a voice transmission, "Hurry up and thank him. He saved your lives twice." Ru Xian pouted and bowed to Su Zimo. "Brute, my name is Ru Xian and I'm also from 100 Refinement sect. Thank you for today." Nangong Ling was a little reluctant as well. However, she still cupped her fists towards Su Zimo and said in a deep voice, "I am Nangong Ling of 100 Refinement sect. Thank you, fellow Taoist." Su Zimo smiled gently and nodded. Although the three of them were from the same sect, they had different personalities. Yu Hanyun was more composed and polite, she indeed had the bearing of a disciple of a major sect. Ru Xian, on the other hand, was carefree and straightforward. As for Nangong Ling, apart from the aura of a major sect, there was also a pride in her bones, as though she had an extraordinary background. Su Zimo had a good impression of the three of them. At the very least, they did not have bad natures and exuded vitality and courage. "Hey, haven't you heard of senior brother Nangong's name?" Ru Xian could not help but ask when she saw that Su Zimo had no reaction after Nangong Ling introduced herself. Su Zimo recalled carefully before shaking his head. I haven't heard of it." Ru Xian immediately revealed a hint of disdain. "Have you heard of the Jean Dan phenomenon ranking?" Ru Xian asked again. "Yes," Su Zimo nodded. Ru Xian patted her bulging chest and heaved a sigh of relief. "Not bad. You know about the Jean Dan phenomenon ranking. Saves me the trouble of explaining." Pausing for a moment, Ru Xian took a deep breath and kept him in suspense before saying slowly, "Listen up. Senior brother Nangong is ranked 83 on the Jin Dan phenomenon ranking this time round." Su Zimo was stunned. It was not because he was shocked. He was once the number one of the phenomenon ranking, and 83 was truly nothing in his eyes. He was stunned. On the one hand, he lamented the passage of time. After 100 years, the phenomenon ranking had already changed. On the other hand, he was filled with emotions as he recalled everything that happened in the ancient battlefield 100 years ago. Nangong Ling stood at the side with his chin raised proudly with a hint of arrogance. From time to time, he would look towards Yu Hanyun, as though he was flaunting silently. Beneath his seemingly calm appearance, he could not conceal the joy in his heart. He was very satisfied with Su Zimo's reaction. Anyone who suddenly saw a cultivator ranked 83 on the phenomenon ranking would be shocked and fearful. At that moment, Nangong Ling felt as though he was the only existence in the world and shone brightly. Yu Hanyun rubbed his forehead helplessly. He. When Ru Xian saw Su Zimo's blank gaze, she could not help but laugh out loud. She reached out and waved her palm in front of Su Zimo's eyes. "Scared silly? Hey, hurry, and wake up." Su Zimo snapped out of his daze and chuckled as well, as though there was a deeper meaning behind it. However, at that moment, Nangong Ling and Ru Xian did not react at all. Not long later, when they truly understood the meaning behind Su Zimo's smile, they were so embarrassed that they almost wanted to burrow into the ground. "What are you laughing at?" Ru Xian hammered Su Zimo's chest without any ill intentions. "Ru Xian, stop fooling around." Yu Hanyun could not stand it any longer. "You have to know that there's always someone better than you. I'm impressed by senior brother Nangong's strength as well, but there are still 82 paragons before him. Furthermore, there's still the paragons of the previous phenomenon ranking and the previous phenomenon ranking." Ru Xian shook her head. "You can't say that. We're cultivators of 100 Refinement Sect, one of the 4 unorthodox groups. We can't compare to the Immortal, Fiend, and Buddhist sections. It's extremely difficult for us 100 Refinement Sect cultivators to obtain a spot on the phenomenon ranking. The last time a sect cultivator left his name on the phenomenon ranking, it was thousands of years ago." Ru Xian was not wrong. It was extremely difficult for the disciples of the 4 unorthodox groups to leave their names on the phenomenon ranking. Among the 4 unorthodox groups of the previous phenomenon ranking, only Ji Qing Tian of Elixir Yang sect was ranked below the 100th place. Therefore, it was already rather rare for Nangong Ling to be ranked 83 on the phenomenon ranking. It was easy to understand. Be it 100 Refinement Sect or the other sects of the 4 unorthodox groups, their cultivation tendencies were different. For example, 100 Refinement Sect focused on weapon refinement. However, a person's energy was limited. If they wanted to succeed in weapon refinement, they would have to expend a huge amount of mental energy. As such, their combat strength would naturally be weaker. Throughout history, there were very few cultivators in 100 Refinement Sect who were famous for their accomplishments in weapon refinement and combat strength. Chapter 898. Ru Xian continued smugly, "Let me tell you, it's not only senior brother Nangong. Sister Hanyan and I entered the ancient battlefield as well and arrived at Myriad Phenomenon City to witness the unprecedented battle for the phenomenon ranking. Such an experience was indeed rare and was something worth bragging about. After all, there were only a handful of perfected Jin Dan beings in Tianhuang mainland who were qualified to enter the ancient battlefield. Those who could reach Myriad Phenomenon City were even rarer." Su Zimo sighed internally. Unfortunately, the previous phenomenon ranking was not an honor for the paragons who arrived at Myriad Phenomenon City, it was a catastrophe. Ru Xian continued, "The number one of the phenomenon ranking this time round is extremely powerful. He created an unprecedented Jean Dan phenomenon and swept through all those of the same cultivation realm in an incomparably domineering manner. He can be said to be an unprecedented monster incarnate. Right. He even inscribed his name on the ancient phenomenon stele. The tides were turbulent and sand was washed away by the tides. In 100 years, countless paragons would definitely rise and shine brightly. Su Zimo had a calm expression and a glint flashed through his eyes. He wondered how many people would still remember him after 100 years. Although Yi Tiancheng is powerful, it's not necessarily unprecedented. Yu Hanyun shook her head. I heard that the number 1 and number 2 of the previous phenomenon ranking created a new phenomenon. Furthermore, there are many legends about the number 1 of the previous phenomenon ranking. He seems to be even stronger than Yi Tiancheng, tisk. Ru Xian was disdainful and pouted. Sister, you said it yourself that the number 1 of the previous phenomenon ranking was a legend. What's a legend? It's fake. The more rumors spread, the more fake they get. Nangong Ling nodded as well. We didn't see what the number 1 of the previous phenomenon ranking looked like. We don't know how much of it was fake either. However, we witnessed Yi Tiancheng's combat strength with our own eyes. It's truly unprecedented. Since we're already at nascent soul realm, he must have entered it a long time ago as well. Given his combat strength, he'll definitely be able to defeat all the perfected lords once he reaches the nascent soul realm. He'll be invincible among nascent soul cultivators. Judging from the looks of Nangong Ling and the others, it was obvious that they were clueless about what had happened in Wanxiang City 100 years ago. Or rather, even if they knew, their knowledge was limited and they thought that it was just a legend. A trace of mockery flashed in Su Zimo's eyes. This, he could understand. After all, 100 years ago, the various major sects and factions in Myriad Phenomenon City were massacred by the alien races. Countless paragons died and they were nearly wiped out. In the end, it was only because of him that they managed to turn the tide and save everyone. Moreover, Su Zimo was another alien in the eyes of everyone. This matter was very disgraceful. It could even be said that in front of the Rakshasa race and the Protoss, the major sects had lost all face. After they returned to Tianhuang mainland, it was normal for them to keep this matter a secret. Just like that, the truth was concealed. Furthermore, it had only been 100 years. 500 or 1,000 years later, who would still remember that there was a figure who fought to the death in Myriad Phenomenon City back then, protecting the final dignity of the human race without retreating at all? Who would still remember that there was once a person who turned the tides single-handedly and supported a building that was about to collapse? Who would still remember that there was once a figure who stood on the corpse of an alien race with an unparalleled aura and let out a heroic cry, "The emperors are not here, but I am." The passage of time would eventually bury all of this, until there was not a single trace left behind. Su Zimo took a deep breath of air and asked in a seemingly casual manner, "You guys seem to be very disdainful of the previous phenomenon ranking." "That's normal," Ru Xian shrugged. "There's only 2 possibilities if there's no news of that person after 100 years. Firstly, he's already dead. Furthermore, he died silently. It's clear that he's nothing much. Paragons who died prematurely would eventually be forgotten without exception." Su Zimo asked, "What's the second possibility?" Ru Xian said, "Secondly, he's as timid as a mouse and has already gone into hiding." Frowning, Su Zimo did not quite understand what she meant. Ru Xian continued, 80 years ago, Di Yin, who was second on the previous phenomenon ranking, came out of seclusion and declared that he wanted to have a life and death battle with that person. However, that person did not reply at all. Later on, Di Yin attacked and I heard that he almost killed that person's best friend. However, that person did not even appear. If he's not as timid as a mouse, what is he? As Ru Xian spoke, she suddenly shuddered and could not continue. Instinctively, she raised her head and saw Su Zimo with a cold expression and a dark gaze. He exuded a shuddering aura that was indescribably terrifying. Su Zimo's hands were stained with the blood of paragons and monster incarnates. It was definitely not a fluke that there were corpses beneath his feet along the way. He even dared to kill an overlord. Given Ru Xian's cultivation and combat strength, there was no way she could withstand his wrath. When a person's killing intent was released, the world would topple. Ah! Ru Xian exclaimed and retreated a few steps back with a pale face. Nangong Ling and Yu Hanyun's expressions changed starkly as well. They felt their hearts skip a beat as though a calamity was about to befall them. Nangong Ling slapped his storage bag. With a clang, he pulled out a long saber and waited with rapt attention. Su Zimo reacted and knew that he had lost his composure. He retracted the killing intent in his heart and the shuddering aura vanished as well. Ru Xian and the other two were stunned. In the blink of an eye, the green-robed burly man had returned to normal and was ordinary. Just now, that shuddering feeling seemed to be an illusion. Ru Xian's heart was filled with grievance as she came before Su Zimo and shouted, "Why are you glaring at me? Why are you so fierce to me?" After a moment of silence, Su Zimo said, "Sorry, I was thinking about something else earlier on and lost my composure." Humph. Ru Xian rolled her eyes, as though she did not appreciate it. Su Zimo did not continue consoling her and asked, "Fellow Taoist, may I ask who was injured by Diyin?" "I don't know." Ru Xian replied in annoyance and turned away. When Yu Hanyun saw that the situation was a little tense, she hurriedly added, "I heard that the successor of Tomb's sect and a fellow Taoist with the surname Ji from Elixir Yang sect were injured." Yu Hanyun stole a glance and continued when she saw Su Zimo's expressionless face, "That fellow Taoist with the surname Ji was saved with an elixir from Elixir Yang sect to extend his life. I heard that the fellow Taoist from Tomb's sect escaped as well. However, his whereabouts are unknown and his fate is unknown." Yu Hanyun pondered for a moment and asked probingly, "Fellow Taoist, you know them?" Su Zimo did not reply. Hakka Dojin's voice sounded in his mind, "Don't worry, if that friend of yours obtained the legacy teachings of Tomb's sect, he won't die so easily. Furthermore, after those two incidents, the others will definitely be grounded by their sections. No matter how strong Diyin is, he won't dare to kill in the territory of those major sections." Yu Hanyun was not annoyed when Su Zimo did not reply and continued, "I heard that Diyin wanted to kill a few more people initially. Later on, those people were grounded by their sects and he no longer had the chance." Finally, Su Zimo was able to relax. As long as his old friends were fine, he would not be too late to return. Chapter 899. After a moment of silence, Yu Hanyun smiled gently and looked up at Su Zimo with rippling eyes. "We're a little off topic. I don't know your name yet, fellow Taoist." Pondering for a moment, Su Zimo said, "My name is Mo Ling." That was the name he used when he became famous in the capital of Great Zhou as a weapon refinement master. Now that he was about to arrive at the largest weapon refinement sect in Tianhuang mainland and used that name, it was rather interesting. Mo Ling, Yu Hanyun and Su Zimo repeated it internally but realized that they had never heard of it before. Back then, Mo Ling was only famous in Great Zhou. Not many cultivators of the Middle Continent, even people of the North region had heard of this name. 100 years later, there were even fewer people who could link Mo Ling and Su Zimo together. Nangong Ling's gaze flickered and she asked in a seemingly casual manner, "Fellow Taoist, you don't seem weak. May I know which sect you are from?" Su Zimo could tell that Nangong Ling was testing him. However, he was prepared and replied indifferently with a calm expression, "I'm an itinerant cultivator with no sect." Nangong Ling frowned. There's something strange about this person's identity. He's definitely not telling the truth. Nangong Ling secretly sent a voice transmission to Yu Hanyun and Ru Xian. Ru Xian said hurriedly, "I have the same feeling too. If he's not from any sect, how can he know about our Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra? One had to know that the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra was no small matter. In 100 Refinement sect, there were many cultivation branches. However, only their branch was qualified to cultivate it. Even cultivators from other branches of the sect were not qualified to cultivate it, let alone itinerant cultivators from other sects. Nangong Ling's branch did not have many cultivators, but their status in 100 Refinement sect was extremely high. This lineage was called Extreme Fire, and it was created to commemorate the founder of this lineage. This Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra was passed down by their ancestor. It was no small matter. Even if one mastered the cultivation method, the number of cultivators who could successfully cultivate it was still extremely rare. How could Nangong Ling and the others not be shocked to meet a cultivator of unknown origin outside the sect who actually knew the Scarlet Flame Heart Sutra? At the same time, Hakka Adojin's voice sounded in Su Zimo's mind. Ask them about Hellfire Hall. Su Zimo coughed softly and asked, I heard that this person said that he's from Hellfire Hall. I wonder what's the background of Hellfire Hall? Upon hearing this question, Nangong Ling and the other two revealed strange expressions. Ru Xian was straightforward and glared. You haven't even heard of Hellfire Hall? I'm not a cultivator from the Middle Continent. I'm from an outer region. I really don't know the name of the Hellfire Hall. Su Zimo raised his brows and said deliberately, why? Hellfire Hall is very famous and is even more powerful than 100 Refinement sect. As though her tail had been stepped on, Ru Xian jumped up and shouted, how is that possible? Ru Xian said angrily, Hellfire Hall is a traitor of our 100 Refinement sect. They've only made a name for themselves in the past few years. How can they compare to our 100 Refinement sect? Traitor? Su Zimo asked, who betrayed 100 Refinement sect? Naturally, Hakka Adojin was the one who asked that question. Nangong Ling and the other two were stunned by the question and confusion flashed through their eyes. It was clear that they did not know much about this matter. Ru Xian grit her teeth. In any case, it's definitely a traitor. I heard that the abilities of the Hellfire Hall's Hall Master were learned from our 100 Refinement sect. Su Zimo saw that Nangong Ling and the other two were young and guessed that they did not know about these ancient secrets, so he did not continue asking. Su Zimo thought for a moment and asked again, why did the cultivators of Hellfire Hall chase you guys here despite the danger? Of course it's because, Ru Xian was about to answer when a deep shout sounded in her mind, interrupting her. Nangong Ling hurriedly sent a voice transmission, that person's identity and background are unknown. Don't say everything. You can't judge a book by its cover. In the cultivation world, there are sinister and cunning people everywhere. Let's be careful not to be betrayed without knowing it. Ru Xian stuck out her tongue and looked at Su Zimo cautiously with a guarded expression. Su Zimo smiled casually. It's fine if it's inconvenient. For some reason, Yu Hanyun had an indescribable trust in Su Zimo. This person had a rough appearance and could not be considered handsome. However, he was upright and every move he made exuded an open-minded and unruly aura. Furthermore, this person had just saved them. The reason why the people of Hellfire Hall chased us here is because of the two items we just obtained. Yu Hanyun ignored Nangong Ling's warning gaze and said, Yuan Meteor Stone and Malevolent Earth Black Copper. Those were two top-grade materials for refining dermic weapons. After Hakka Adojin's cramming during this period of time, the origins of the two materials flashed through his mind. As the name suggested, Yuan meteor stones were stars that fell from the sky. The stars in the heavens were massive and every single one of them contained extremely terrifying power. In the ancient books, it was recorded that the ancient emperors had once released supreme divine powers to pluck the stars. Under the vast night sky, the Tao fire burned and refined the emperor weapon, causing the world to tremble. After the stars fell, their powers weakened continuously. By the time they fell to the ground, be it in size or power, there was not much left. Even so, the heaven and earth powers contained within Yuan meteor stones were exceptionally pure and were still top-grade materials for refining dermic weapons. Hakka Dojin had once mentioned to Su Zimo that if he used Yuan meteor stones to refine dermic weapons, there might even be a chance of creating a Khanate dermic weapon with 6 dermic patterns. As for the malevolent earth black copper, it was also a top-grade universal treasure with rich heaven and earth powers. Black copper was a rare spirit material to begin with. In order to condense a small piece of malevolent earth black copper, it had to be nourished for 10,000 years in a place surrounded by malevolent earth. It could be said that those two materials were priceless. Just the appearance of those two spirit materials would attract many experts to fight for them. Yu Hanyun seemed to have thought of something and said with a hint of worry, "After some time, our 100 Refinement sect will have a weapon refinement duel with Hellfire Hall. At that time, all the major sects and factions will be present and 100 Refinement sect can't afford to lose." Su Zimo nodded. Hellfire Hall had mobilized a large force and sent people to kill Nangong Ling and the other two. While snatching the two top-grade spirit materials, they would also gain the upper hand in the weapon refinement duel not long later. When Su Zimo saw the worry in Yu Hanyun's eyes, he could not help but ask, "Fellow Taoist, you seem to still be worried even though the two spirit materials are safe?" Yu Hanyun nodded. The person who represented Hellfire Hall for the competition is a weapon refinement genius. He once personally created a Khanate perfected Lord dermic weapon. I can't compare to him in that aspect. It was way too difficult to refine Khanate dermic weapons. Before this, Su Zimo could only create perfect-grade spirit weapons at most with the help of his spirit perception. Some of his Khanate spirit weapons were even repaired using damaged Khanate spirit weapons. It was much less difficult than creating Khanate dermic weapons directly. Su Zimo asked, "What will happen if you lose?" Yu Hanyun pursed her lips and remained silent for a long time before saying bitterly, "Among the 4 unorthodox groups, 100 Refinement sect might be replaced." "How dare he?" A voice filled with endless anger sounded from the Mingwang prayer beads. Immediately after, a scorching aura spread out as though it wanted to incinerate the firmaments. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.